The next 4 hours, we've got you. Hour from now, we'll talk with Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Get her thoughts on the Super Bowl and what happened in that game, and moving forward, certainly.
That's next week, right?
Yes. The Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. Cannot wait to be there. I'm so pumped about how much fun the Super Bowl is going to be. Yeah, I think the Chiefs are also waiting for the Super Bowl to start. They won the coin toss, and that was about it. But we'll talk with Cynthia Freeland. What happens moving forward now? I went back and looked because I was trying to find, we always ask these analysts that we have on who wins the Super Bowl the next year that we absolutely write down in stone. And Field Yates last year picked Chiefs over Rams and picked the three-peat. Idiot. It's so stupid. Although, had the Rams finished off that last drive, it might have been Chiefs over Rams.
It actually might have been Chiefs over Rams.
Super Bowl, if they'd have just taken care of business. That damned Sean McVay, that's the problem. That damned Kyron Williams and his fumbles in the snow. Whatever. It happens. But I forgot that we didn't have Cynthia on last year to wrap up the season because we have her on Wednesdays. And we had our regular Monday post-Super Bowl win. We had our regular Tuesday, Adam Teicher, post-Super Bowl win. And then Wednesday, we had the parade. And the plan was going to be for us to have Cynthia on Thursday. But obviously that all changed with the tragedy that took place there at the parade. So I don't know who she would have picked last year at the end of the season. We know at the beginning of the season, Cynthia picked Eagles over Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I don't know what she would have picked a year ago, but before the season starts, she picked Eagles over Chiefs. Her algorithm had Eagles over Chiefs, and when we talked to her last Wednesday, her heart had Chiefs over Eagles. So that's why we split it when we were looking at the all the different guests we had on last week, that it was 16-4 Chiefs to Eagles, and Cynthia counted for 2. Cynthia Hart, Chiefs, Cynthia model, algorithm, whatever, Eagles.
On Radio Row, I think guest was like 80% Eagles.
Really?
I mean, it was...
Well, they were right.
Part of it was because I think they were tired of seeing the Chiefs win.
Well, yeah,
Some
that
of them
happens.
But like Emmitt Smith, Cowboys.
Yeah. Pick the Eagles?
Pick the Eagles.
What a traitor.
I'm like, dog.
What an absolute traitor.
What are you doing here? But that's the point is, I don't know if they actually believe that or if they all just went with the Eagles, because it was a shock. Well, 8 out of every 10 for sure picked Eagles, and I was just perplexed by that. They were right.
16 out of every 20 that came on the show with us.
What? So it's
the Chiefs.
So
now,
80% on this show.
We're in Kansas City.
80%.
We weren't talking to as many players as like you were talking to tons of players, right? We were talking to a lot of analysts and things like that. And the common theme was the Eagles are the better team, but the Chiefs find ways to win, and there's so much on the line, and this team looks locked in, and it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid so the Chiefs win. That's why I'm picking the Chiefs to win. Like, that was the common theme from anybody that picked the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Picking the Eagles, there were 4 people that picked the Eagles, or 3 people in one computer. Only one of them picked the Eagles that didn't have like a dog in the fight. Donovan McNabb picked the Eagles, played for the Eagles. Mark Schlereth picked the Eagles, hates the Chiefs, and said on the air, no, I hate the Chiefs with the power of 1,000 suns. So I will be rooting for the Eagles as much as I've rooted for any team ever. And he's trolled Chiefs fans.
Yeah, it's
and
his shtick.
And we talked about it on the air. I asked him if he has finally got around to putting that video out of all of the false starts. And so we had some fun banter for about 5 minutes about the refs and the absurdity, and him admitting that, yes, I'm doing it because I freaking hate them. And yes, I can't stand them winning. And that's why I'm trolling. And that's why I'm talking about on Twitter, because I'm projecting my frustrations and my hate of the Chiefs because I respect the players so much. But the Chiefs brand and that team, I cannot stand them. I hate them. And, the rivalry back then.
It's fair.
So Schlereth picked the Eagles because he hates the Chiefs. McNabb picked the Eagles because he played for the Eagles. And Michelle Beadle picked the Eagles because she said, I think they're just better. There you go. That's the one. Michelle Beadle's like, I'm picking the Eagles. They're just the better team. I know that it's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, but she's like, I just think the Eagles across the board are just a better team in this game. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, anybody else pick the Eagles? I'm like, not really. Because that was before we had McNabb and before we had Mark Schlereth on.
Running back, every single running back picked the Eagles.
They got that Saquon love.
They're all like,
they hate Kareem Hunt
Saquon.
and Isaiah Pacheco.
I said it every time I go, what do you have against Kareem and Pacheco?
Samaje Perine, to hell with you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, what about
Cannot stand you.
the three-headed monster in the Chiefs' backfield? What are you talking about? Come on, guys.
That's right. So we'll see. Cynthia's heart was wrong. If your heart is wrong, then who wants to be right? You know what I mean? Follow your heart. Her heart was wrong, but her math was correct. So
that's why I hate math.
Is math math is the language of love? That's what everybody says, right? Or it's the universal language. One of those things. I'm not sure which one it is. I think her love language is math, probably. I actually think that's probably the case with her. So Cynthia joins us at 11 o'clock. Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock. I think he'll be here in studio. I don't know, tougher travel from his house to here today or New Orleans to home a couple of days ago. I'm not sure.
They have not plowed any of the roads, at least when I was getting here. Everything
They've
was
been out trying, all night. There's a lot of roads in the town.
And if my Honda Accord can make it, then
yeah,
I'm just saying
wasn't nearly as bad.
Metcalf.
Look, here's the
Metcalf. Come on.
Here's the thing. I'm over the snow now. All right.
I had fun driving here.
I was pumped about the first go around and the record. I'm like, oh my, how much can we get? Once you're past like 8 or 9 inches, just get bigger and bigger and more. You know what I mean?
Well.
Yeah. No. I mean, I did that on purpose.
Good job.
I did it on purpose. We're trying to rebuild our
catalog,
our catalog for this Friday. You know what I mean? so once you get to or that minute, I'm like, you know what? Just go. Just more snow. Okay, it's gonna suck anyway. And now it's just like, man, all right, we went through that. I did the whole awful shoveling the driveway thing, and now like I'm over it. Like dusting or a couple of inches, that's fine. But like whatever. And I got to experience the snow in the new Expedition. Like that was fun, a while ago. But now I could have gotten to work in a front wheel drive, sedan.
It was fun though because no one
I didn't
on the
need
road
the Expedition to do that.
this morning.
Oh, there were more people on the road this morning than there were the last time.
Well, sure, but I had all of Metcalf to myself at the Jeep Wrangler on, so I'm just I'm just going back. I'm just having
You're
fun.
Just weaving,
just doing some donuts.
Just doing
out
donuts
there.
in the middle of Metcalf.
Just right there on College and Metcalf.
This is a holiday for Jeep people.
Yes.
This is like
This is
Christmas.
fun.
This is
Look,
New Year's Eve.
I like this.
Better
Dylan.
than any holiday.
Dylan.
Because now the tow cable, they can actually use it.
That's right. Dylan, it's a Jeep thing. You wouldn't
You're right.
understand.
My bad.
Okay,
You're
that's what
right.
I've been told.
I've already got 3
I've
ducks.
read that.
People
I've
just
read
giving
that.
me ducks today.
Just a pro tip for those that are out there driving in it and maybe aren't used to driving in it. When you're driving down a decline in the snow, okay, and you get closer to a stoplight, and if the roads were clear and it turned yellow, you would make a decision of it's kind of odd timing. Do I go or not? In the snow when it turns yellow, don't slam on your brakes, you dumb mother bleeper.
Would someone do that?
Yes, and then I had to hit my brakes because they're in front. I'm like, go. We're both going to go here because we're going down a hill, and it just turned yellow. There's no way for us to stop. And just sliding on through the intersection. You dumb just go.
Yeah.
Just let off the brakes and let it glide through. You will be past the stop. This person would have been past the stoplight by the time the other light turned green. And that person then would have to start in the snow to drive. Like, if you can't do it, then stay home.
Yes.
If you don't know what you're doing, then stay home. That's all.
There was a truck guy
Pro
who
tip.
was at one point there was no cars on the road, and then this truck guy came up next to me, and he just kept going the exact same speed as me.
And just acknowledging, like, what's up,
Well,
fellow
no, I'm
snow driver?
Like I like slow down. He's like, oh, I should probably slow down too. I'm like, no, we don't need to. There's all this space here. If you all of a sudden decide that you hit a patch, you're going directly into my. Why? Faster or slower?
Yeah.
We don't need to go the same miles per hour. A lot of space here. No one's on the road besides you and I, guy.
Yeah.
Come on.
If you come up to a yellow light in the snow and you would have to slam on your brakes to stop, then just glide on through. Glide on through. Just be smarter.
Be like Clyde.
Yes,
Glide and glide.
Jack Johnson is with us. Jack, have you caught up on sleep since Sunday night?
I have, yeah.
for you.
It took me a few days,
I
but
bet.
we've had later ones, to be honest with you. I
That's
was
true.
expecting that to be a 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. night.
We
but
were
when-
hoping it would be.
when you get your ass kicked that badly, there's no need to go till 3 or
Yes.
4 a.m. So
Yeah.
I feel good now.
I think it was what was like 2 or 3 million people turned off the TV after halftime. that stopped watching the Super Bowl, just watched it through halftime, and then it was like, all right, well, the game's over anyway. Let's go. We're going to go ahead and drive home and leave the Super Bowl party. If you didn't have a dog in the fight, right? We're staying. We see what the halftime show was, and now it's like, well, it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday. We might as well get home, or whatever time it was at that point. I don't know, 7:30, 8. I guess the game started around 5:30 or so. But yeah, it would have been nice if you guys had an all-nighter, Jack. I'll be honest with you. I wish you would have stayed up later, you and Dylan. That would have been nice.
It wouldn't have been disappointing.
Yeah,
Dylan
I wish you would have
had a
handed
full
off
spread.
right to Steven.
Exactly. He had like 4 boxes of pizza, wings,
Did you really?
tater tots.
You were
Actually,
ready.
Johnny's really hooked it up for us, man. It was like
You ready for fourth meal?
it was sad.
It was
It was a
fantastic.
sad way to
Getting
end
sad eat.
packing up all this food.
So then you're sad
wanted,
eating.
Dude,
no
you're-
one wanted to eat because no one was
You were-
hungry during the
You
game.
were
at all.
Urban Meyer pizza. You were Urban Meyer eating the pizza is what we were
There you go.
on Sunday night. That
specific
damned
Urban Meyer
picture.
situation.
Yes, that specific
Yes.
Urban Meyer eating the pizza after the game on the golf cart. Sad as hell.
Oh, so there were
you know.
college girls here?
No.
That's why I said that specific.
that specific
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah, you weren't sitting at a bar stool and there weren't
No,
other women
no
back
tequila.
there?
No,
Okay,
no
great.
dance floors or tequila.
That's great. So we'll talk with Cynthia Freeland coming up at 11 o'clock, Mick Schaefer at 1 o'clock. We'll start with college basketball. And certainly we'll talk about 2 games that were last night. Missouri gets underway tonight against Oklahoma. But the story in the Big 12, and maybe at this point, I think it should be, and if it hasn't been, then people need to start paying attention. The story is Kansas State and what they have done in these 6 games, which is, I don't think remarkable, surprising, shocking. Like, I don't even know what the right way to describe it. Unexpected doesn't do it justice.
No.
Of what we've seen from this team of, when they lost 7 in a row or 6 in a row and they were 1-9 over a 10-game stretch, and the one win was against Cincinnati. And we thought, okay, this team's, getting into Big 12 play. They lost to St. John's, and that was a rough one. They lost to Drake in overtime. They went and lost to Wichita State and weren't really competitive. And then, boom, Big 12 play, new season, wipe the slate clean. They beat Cincinnati. There you go. And then they lost 6 in a row. And then it's like, this team is heading in the wrong direction. They look lost. They aren't a good collection. They would be better chopped up and sold for parts than they would as the collective.
But then
And then.
Bryce Drew.
And they can.
Then Bryce Drew enters the locker room. Scott Drew.
What if Bryce Drew was in there too? That would have been odd.
And Scott Drew enters the locker room.
Yes. All shucks, gee golly. And they have won 6 games in a row, 4 of those games against ranked teams at the time. And they have completed a 3 out of 4 game stretch where they went to Iowa State. And even if you want to throw all 4 because going to Arizona State, went to Iowa State, went to Arizona State, and then knock off Kansas and Arizona at home the last 2 games. And quite frankly, the schedule now lightens up.
Yeah.
They've got their Utah trip on Saturday, Monday ahead of them with BYU and then Utah. Both road games. And then they have just 2 road games left, UCF and then Cincinnati. And they've got a homer against Arizona State, a homer against Colorado, and a home one against Iowa State to wrap things up. This has been what was most impressive last night to me, and I'll get your guys' thoughts on it as well. What was most impressive to me last night is we had kind of been wondering what would happen when K-State cooled off. That, yeah, they're winning 5 in a row, but they're shooting like 45% from 3. I mean, you got guys that are shooting like 50% from 3 in like the last 4 or 5 games. Like, it's an amazing stretch, and they're feeling it right now, and they're playing like uber confident, and the goal feels like it's a swimming pool. What happens when they cool off? Okay, they're going to go 1 of 19 against Arizona. Okay, now it was a good run. Arizona got you. Now you're probably back in the boat of you need to make a strong run, if not win the Big 12 tournament, because you really needed that Arizona win to put on your resume, just racking up really good wins and simply racking up wins just to try to get to that 20-11 spot. You know what I mean? Can you be 20? Can you win 20 games this year? Can they go 20-13? Can you get 7 more wins and only 2 more losses? 1 in the Big 12 tournament and 1 the rest of the way. Can you get to that 20-win mark and pick up some good wins along the way? Yeah, but what happens if you don't knock down threes? And they didn't last night, and they still beat the second hottest team
Yeah.
in the Big 12. And maybe some would say the hottest because they had only lost one over a 13-game span instead of winning 5 in a row. Like, what's a better stretch? 12-1 or winning 5 in a row? Well, you can make the argument about what Arizona was doing. But to win last night when it wasn't just – they didn't sneak up on Arizona. All right? Arizona knew what they were walking into. They didn't shoot the ball well. Arizona didn't either, but play defense, find other ways to do it. They turned them over 17 times. They got 14 steals, and Doug McDaniel was fantastic last night. Gasson was great. Jones was really good. They had other guys stepping up and playing big roles. It wasn't Hawson and it wasn't Coleman Hawkins playing, great basketball throughout the entire game and just, scoring 15, 18 points apiece. They had other guys that had to step up, and I think that was the most impressive part is the question, what happens when they cool off? We got an answer. They cooled off, and they turned up the defensive pressure. And they got hot on the defensive side. They put the fire to Arizona. They cooled off on offense, put the fire to Arizona's feet, and turned them over, and got 14 steals and buckets off of steals, and a great steal at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And getting both feet in bounds. It was a catch. Although it would have been better if he just caught the ball and straddled the half-court line, instead of getting both feet in bounds and the ball, because now you've established possession in the front court instead of the, people misunderstanding the rule of 3.
Correct.
In the over and back. But then throwing it to Joe. But doesn't matter. They got the job done. That was incredibly impressive last night. Not only beat Arizona, but go 1 of 19 from behind the arc and win.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to is finding ways because you're going to have an off night. You can't do this every single night where you're just getting bucket after bucket after bucket. And especially against an Arizona team where we talked about if they lose Arizona, it's going to be almost insurmountable. Because that whole
Without a phenomenal run through
in the Big 12, yes. This helps them so much. It's now they have a legitimate path to making the tournament after what seemed like a foregone conclusion that the season was already a wash. The fact that Doug McDaniel is starting to find his role, a scoring role in this offense, is absolutely massive. Him coupled with Coleman Hawkins, you can now is Coleman Hawkins going to do this going forward? No, he had his bad game. You get it out of the way now, and you still found a way to win against a team, as you mentioned, was probably the hottest team in the Big 12.
Yeah, these were the 2 hottest teams in the Big 12 matching up against each other,
but
for different reasons.
Gasson doing what he was doing, but again, the fact that McDaniel and Hawkins, the fact that Hawkins was so poor offensively but still found a way to make an impact defensively, that's huge. Not your star player having a bad night and just checking out, saying, I will find a way to still make an impact in this game. Again, the 14 steals, forcing 17 turnovers for Arizona while you still took care of the ball offensively. That 10-11 turnover margin, turnovers off, when you're on offense.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good number to be at. I don't expect to be 6-7. That's unrealistic. But if you can stick around that 10-11, they had 10 in this one. And it's not like they shot free throws well. Like, that's, again, what's so impressive is they found a way to win when things were not going their way. K-State, I'm officially putting my stamp on it. They're back.
He stamped it.
That's the Sterling stamp. Sterling stamp is here.
The Sterling
They're
stamp.
back. I
Wow.
believe in them.
I think we just created something.
It's the Sterling stamp.
The Sterling stamp.
They're back. K-State gets my first Sterling
They
stamp.
went from 2 scoops to a Sterling stamp.
They went from
in
2
one
scoops?
season.
I've never seen this before in my life.
Yeah, nobody's ever
No
gone
one
2
has
scoops
ever,
to Sterling stamp.
No one has ever done it from 2 scoops to a Sterling stamp. K-State, you're welcome. You have now got it.
K-State, we saw history in the last couple of days. Chiefs were the first team ever to play in a Super Bowl after winning back-to-back Super Bowls. And K-State, the first team ever to go from 2 scoops to a positive Sterling stamp.
I'm just saying.
Wow. Unbelievable. I don't know what's crazy. I don't know what's more historical, Jack.
It's not an exact comparison, but I feel like
Chiefs and K-State?
Well, yes, that part
pretty
too.
close.
But K-State having the momentum now, but also feeling like every night out their season's on the line. I mean, even with the win last night, as great as it is, they are 13-11.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, they can't end the regular season with 13 losses and then have 1 loss in Kansas City because 14 in a
14's
Power
rough.
5 conference just isn't going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you could bring up the Ken Palm rankings and you could bring up the quad 1 wins. What really hurts K-State when you look back at them, whether they make the tournament or not. If they make the tournament, it'll probably come down to seeding as how you view this.
Yeah.
Or if they miss it, I think you go exactly back to the non-conference slate.
Mm-hmm.
They had one of the worst non-conference slates based off the competitiveness of the teams they were facing, and then their overall record. They were 6-5. They open up losing to Oklahoma State in Big 12 play. They get smoked by Oklahoma State on the road. They had lost that one in Fort Worth to TCU. Now they're hitting their stride, and they're hitting their stride at the perfect time. In my opinion, they next to Houston are the toughest team to beat in the Big 12, at least over the last 6 games or so. There are easier games on the schedule. You'll have Colorado. You'll have a home matchup against Arizona State. For me, what it's going to come down to really is BYU this Saturday, and then likely UCF in Orlando. Those 2 road games to me can be a little bit tricky. Provo is always tough to win at, whether it be football or basketball. And then UCF, I mean, they took Houston to the wire a few weeks ago near the beginning part of conference play. But at home, who's going to stop Kansas State now? Iowa State? I mean, with the way K-State knocked them around in Ames and the way that it happened last year where Iowa State came into Manhattan and got smoked, I could see a similar outcome. So for Kansas State, to me, you can't have 2 more losses in the regular season. And that's I
agree with that.
If you go ahead.
I was going to ask you guys, if they go 5-2 over this last stretch,
Then make the Big 12 championship game.
well, okay, that's your how far they have to, because if they go 5-2, they're sitting at 18-13, but they would be 12-8 in the Big 12, which is, I know it's not quite as deep as, the SEC or maybe, but it's still a pretty damn good conference. If you're 12-8, I understand the 18. We've seen Oklahoma make it with, was it 18 wins? Now I get it. They had Trey Young, and that was kind of a big reason why I think the committee put them in, because just the excitement factor. But I would find it hard to leave off a 12-8 Big 12 team, especially with what they have done, with that just down the stretch. I think there is some weight to what you've done for me lately versus what you did at the start of the season.
It could be, for sure. And
you can't lose first round, obviously. But
yeah, I just feel like if they lose 2 more in the regular season, they're going to have to do serious damage in Kansas City, mainly because the SEC is the best conference in college basketball this year, maybe one of the best conferences we've ever seen. But the Big 12, in my opinion, it's worse than it was last year. Houston, of course, is as great as they've been. They're actually a little bit of a step down than they were last year. Iowa State, they've had their ups and downs of the last few weeks. You have Arizona, who wasn't great in the non-conference slate. Now they're playing, of course, at a very high level. So for Kansas State, I would feel very confident if they go 6-1. Maybe they lose to BYU and Provo, but then win out. I believe they would be safe in Kansas City, even if they were to lose just 1 more game. But to me, to have 14 losses, and of those 14 losses, you've got a 20-point beatdown against Wichita State, a 20-point beatdown against Oklahoma State. That is going to be compared to your quad 1 wins and those ranked wins against West Virginia, against a Cincinnati at the time, against the KU, against an Iowa State. It'll be really, really close. So for Kansas State, the best thing they have going for them is that they're still playing for their season. If they were 13-9 right now, maybe you do walk into Provo feeling like, we've still got a few buffer games. The reality is they don't, and they are playing better maybe than anybody in the country right now. I don't see them going into Provo and losing, because they proved that they can win on the road and win in emphatic fashion like they did in Ames. They're a buzzsaw. They're an absolute buzzsaw right now, and for KU fans that thought the loss on Saturday was bad, it's not anymore. 13-11 doesn't mean much to me. It's what they've done of late, but still there's a lot of work to do. And in the Big 12, it's one of those, it's any night it can happen to you. We don't know when that really bad performance is going to happen. Sometimes it's in a trap game. Sometimes it's against a good opponent. So for Kansas State, they're in a good spot right now, but still, if you have those 2 more losses in the regular season, I'd imagine they're going to have to win the tournament in Kansas City, or at worst, get to the championship and barely lose to a Houston or Iowa State.
Because they will be, if they go 5-2 the rest of the way, they'll be higher than an 8 seed or a 9 seed. So therefore, they won't play on those first couple of nights. So they would need 4 wins to win the tournament. So making the conference championship game, making the tournament game would give you 3 more wins. So you would go 3-1. So if you were to go 5 wins the rest of the way, that would put you at 18. So that would make you 21-14 if you go 5-2 and then 3-1.
Yeah, you're in.
The 14 loss is going to be interesting, and the non-conference strength of schedule is going to be interesting too because of how lower ranked it is. They'll pick up quad 1 and quad 2 wins along the way. They will do that. They've got, as it sits right now, they have 1, 2, 3. They've got 4 more quad 1 games left. And those things can certainly move around as the rest of the season goes. And they've got 2 more Quad 2 wins available. The Quad 3 is Colorado. You can't lose that game. That's an absolute must-win. You can't add a Quad 3 loss onto your resume at this point if you want to get into the tournament without having to win the Big 12 tournament. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling, talk a little more about what we saw last night. KU takes care of business. Mizzou in action tonight. And then get some Chiefs topics going as well. Travis Kelce weighs in on retirement on New Heights this morning, weighs in on the Super Bowl. So we'll hear from him as well. More Zone coming up next. Playing Utah Saturday and BYU Tuesday, both those on the road. Do they carpool? Like, that would just make sense. You know what I mean? Carbon
Same
footprint.
flight,
Carbon footprint, man. So there you go.
That'd be kind of fun, honestly.
I go back and forth to, like, you know, how KU is playing lately in the loss to K-State and the loss to Baylor and the loss to Houston and winning against UCF. Certainly taking care of business against Iowa State, doing what they needed to do at home and winning by a sizable margin. But last night against Colorado, bad team, defeated in conference play in the Big 12, Colorado, and you don't want to be there first. You don't want to be their first win and have that ugly, ugly loss on your resume. And so, like, I don't know. They came out sluggish again. Like, it didn't feel like there was a lot of energy again. Like, Colorado was the team that doesn't have much to play for and was out there, playing harder at the beginning of the game. And then, of course, KU turned up the defense, and they did some of the things that they do. But there's still some, perplexing issues about this team and what they'll look like moving forward, because this team is always going to be compared, just like the Chiefs, about what they can do in the tournament. What does this team look like compared to the rest of the top teams in the country, not just simply compared to, whether or not they can make the tournament or get to the second weekend. I mean, KU, it's about Final Fours. It's about Sweet 16 and on. Getting to the Sweet 16 isn't really a question, even though that still should be a good season for almost any team. But for KU, we know the expectations that are there. And so they took care of business last night, but it was still sort of uninspiring in taking care of at times.
Yeah. KJ
Adams showed why Bill Self continues to play him. That's been a spark. But, man, I don't want to focus on a negative after a win, but I think this is where we're at with KU right now is when and can they get some confidence instilled back into a Rylan Griffin, these – because Storr has sort of been a season-long thing, but Griffin hasn't looked like this very often. Like, he looks like he's tentative to even shoot the ball. And I don't know that I've seen that from Rylan Griffin in his career. And he looks just lost. And he also, at the beginning of the game, was somebody without a lot of energy. Goes out to guard a head and shoulder fake, and the guy puts the ball on the floor, and he just doesn't have the energy and the intensity to sort of match the guy driving to the hole to beat him to the spot. And just sort of like, oh, he got past me. That's going to happen. Like, dude, if you're not shooting, man, you got to do other things. And so it's not to just single him out, but I think he matters on this team because how do you stretch the floor besides just Zeke Mayo if DeJuan Harris and KJ are on the floor at the same time?
It's tough. I mean, what feels different about this Kansas team, even compared to last year and the one before that, those two teams getting eliminated in the round of 32, this is usually when Bill Self's teams start turning it on a little bit. And I don't know if I'm looking for blowout wins in some of these games where you should blow them out, because we saw against Iowa State, a blowout did nothing for their momentum. Absolutely, you would think smoking a top 10 opponent in the way that you did would carry into Saturday. It didn't. And so I'm starting to believe that it's a game-by-game basis for them. They could go out there and beat Colorado by 100. Then they could lose to Utah on Saturday. They clearly don't carry that momentum because since the non-conference schedule, they really haven't strung together 5, 6, 7 wins in a row in the way we've seen with Mizzou, the way we've seen with Kansas State. And the most problematic thing to me is what we heard from Bill Self in the postgame, which was, I'm still having to coach energy.
Yep.
And if you're still having to coach energy 24 games into the season, it's very clear there's guys that just aren't bought in based on the role they have.
Where do you fall on this? Because I think it's to me, it's kind of a debate that takes place. There are people out there that will say it is not the coach's job to coach energy. That's the players bringing it and having pride. And then there are other people that say, well, yeah, but it's getting the best out of them as the coach. You've got to draw that on nights that they may not bring it. And I sort of think it depends on the team at times. But if you're this late in the season, it also depends on the coach. Like, I don't think Bill Self forgot how to coach, and I don't think Bill Self forgot how to inspire players to go and bring it each and every night. I don't think he's forgotten those things. So when you have a guy like Bill Self and those things aren't happening, to me, it more falls on the players to whether police themselves or just simply pride in themselves specifically to go out there and play as hard as you can each and every night. Because this isn't like, well, it's a Bill Self team again. Can't get the guys to play hard. So much talent, just can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on. He's had those couple of years where those guys sort of did it, but he just doesn't. No, Bill Self's teams are always the hard-nosed, rugged, in-your-face, tough, defensive, going to make you battle for 40 minutes. And that doesn't feel like this team at all. It doesn't feel like a Bill Self team.
The first red flag for this team was in the non-conference slate. To me, it wasn't even the Creighton beatdown. It was the game in Columbia. And now we see how great Missouri has become. But it was almost from the start of the game, there wasn't any emphasis on this is the border war. This is Kansas, Missouri. You're in Columbia. You should have pride, and we're coming in here to steal a win from a hostile crowd. And it looked like for the first half they just were disinterested, discombobulated by the environment, but not a, man, this is a rivalry game and we should be turned up for this. Then you see it carry into this past Saturday in Manhattan. That's a game that you should be fired up and ready to go for. And they weren't. Let's be honest. They were not fired up and ready to go for that game. And here's the funny part about it is that they've got Utah on Saturday. They've got Colorado coming up, Oklahoma State. They've got very winnable games. BYU early next week. All those unranked teams. You could look up and they'll be 22-7 heading into that game against Texas Tech. It should be. Yeah, we should definitely call that a should-be thing for Kansas because you never know what they're going to look like on the road. But that would be
21-7.
21-7.
21-7.
21-7 going into that Tech game. You'd have Tech, Houston, and Arizona to close out the year. But even then, they could be top 10 in the nation, top 10 in KenPom, all this and that. And does it make you truly feel different about their ability to go deep in the tournament? For me, what they have over last year's team is last year's team was just hurt. They were Kevin McCullough's hurt, Hunter Dickinson's hurt. Guys didn't. There wasn't enough depth off the bench. This year they have that. But it's puzzling that you're 24 games into the season, and we're still talking about some of these guys that can't get going.
Doesn't this team feel more talented than last year?
They're head and shoulders better, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just making sure we're on the same page there, even though there's like one sort of NBA player in Badunga on the team that you feel like, hey, this is the best potential of high-level player is Badunga as a freshman. But this team is like, they've got the talent. It's just not, coming together, and they're not doing it on the defensive end of the floor. And last year, the second half of the season is when it started falling apart, as you mentioned, injuries and things like that.
Well, that's why you see the disconnect with some KU fans and what Bill Self has been doing. But they have to play KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris because you know what you're going to get from those guys.
Yeah, KJ's bringing it. I mean,
maybe not offensive, like as far as like scoring, but you're not going to have to worry about intensity with KJ or DeJuan.
That was a disrespectful block. Like, he was already going to block. He didn't have to do that. That guy's got a family. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have to do all that.
I think Fran Fraschilla even said, "Uh-oh," as he was going up. He's like, "It's going to be ugly."
That was just mean. That was spiteful from KJ.
but I do think that's why when you see some fans, I've seen a lot of KU fans talk about KJ and DeJuan and how you playing those guys. But when you're constantly talking about energy and those are your two big energy guys, you almost have to. It's that fifth spot, which is kind of the shooting guard, small forward spot, whatever you want to call it. But with Rylan Griffin, with A.J. Storr, with Shaq Moore, Bill Self's been trying to find a guy, and that's what's almost more frustrating is Rylan Griffin gets the opportunity to start, and he still doesn't come out with the intent. Like, this is your chance, man.
I just don't think that's I quite frankly, I think it's unacceptable. Like, I don't think you can. It's unacceptable to put on the jersey and to be in Allen Fieldhouse and sort of just half-ass your way through a game. Like, I mean, just that's not on Bill Self. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, Bill Self can coach some energy and get guys in a certain spot. You got to understand what you went to KU for a reason. Like, I know Alabama's a good team and everything, but putting on the Alabama jersey in basketball ain't the same as putting on the Kansas jersey in basketball. And putting on the Wisconsin jersey in basketball ain't the same as putting on the Kansas jersey in basketball. And when you put it on, and you're playing in front of the crowd and the expectations of what it is to be a KU player, you damn sure better bring it. And if you don't, that's on you, and it's unacceptable. And you've got to figure those things out yourself as to why you're not looking at that night as I got to view this as my last opportunity to go out and play ball. Because I don't know, there might be an injury right around the corner that I don't get to play basketball the rest of the way. I'm certainly not going to go and just jog and not get on the floor and just do some of those things that, is, quite frankly, unacceptable.
Do you want Coit?
Is that a fish? Because I'm kind of hungry.
No, you're the KU fake. Because I do think A.J. Storr makes the most sense as a sixth man. If A.J. Storr ever figures it out, your best and highest upside is A.J. Storr as your sixth man. Who do you want in that role? Rylan, Coit, Shaq?
It feels like you have to start Griffin the rest of the way. I don't like the three big lineup, but I just want more minutes for Flory Badunga out there. I think he's the X factor of this team. Coit is very hit and miss. Last night, he certainly was beneficial to them, and I don't know if you can expect it from this game to carry into the next game, because that even happened with A.J. Storr. Looked great against TCU, has kind of disappeared since. Rylan Griffin had a big game against Houston, disappeared since. So maybe it's just a hot hand who's ever playing well, coming off the bench. That's who you stick with. But a lot of people are criticizing Bill Self because this team has no energy. I see a little bit of it because after the game on Saturday, or maybe it was media availability yesterday, he's talking about, well, a lot of teams would feel grateful to be 17-7, whereas like 10 years ago or 12 years ago when they lost to
17-7 isn't
TCU,
good
and it was, this team would get beat by the local YMCA. They're the softest team I've ever coached. That team lost like 6 games all year long, and you just don't see that anymore, and maybe that's why some fans are up in arms about it.
No, I get that. I think there's also an element of, I think it's Bill Self sort of telling you, too, what he thinks of his team. When it's that team that can win a national title and they would have gotten beaten by the YMCA because you're not good enough to win a national title versus this team that maybe he's looking in the mirror and understanding what's missing and what other teams may have and saying, hey, guys, appreciate what we've done to this point. Let's just keep it rolling, man. Let's keep going out there. Energy has to be better, right? But, hey, a lot of people would love to be 17-7 right now, as opposed to you guys continue to suck. It's not good enough, not good enough. I mean, is Bill Self looking at his team and saying, well, if I continue down that path, I'm just going to keep beating them down? Like, at some point, I've got to build them up. And right now, they're not bringing the energy. Is it going to be negative reinforcement to bring the energy? Well, maybe he's already tried that, and it isn't working. So maybe it's now, maybe I've got to bring them along this way and say, hey, we need energy. But, man, appreciate that you guys are 17. I don't know. It could be that Bill Self is just searching behind the scenes of how to get the most out of this group of players, where in years past, you put on a KU jersey, you've been there for a couple of years, you don't really have to pull it out of them. They sort of understand at that point. And that's kind of the NIL era, too.
And
You never know.
I was just about to say that. He's also searching of how to motivate and how to, and I don't want to say discipline, but, basically discipline players without putting them in the transfer portal, because that's exactly what kind of this generation of college athletes can do is, oh, you're going to yell at me? Oh, you're going to, not let me just, one-on-one this whole game? Well, I'll go to Florida, or I'll go to, Arkansas with Cal, and he'll, let us kind of go 5 or 4 out, 1 in. Like, it's just it's how it is.
Yeah. Or, Doug McDaniel that was just taking dudes one-on-one.
Right.
That guy put some dudes on skates last night,
Yeah.
man. I thought that move he put on the big man where he went between his legs to the left and spin and then head and shoulder fake on the dribble and then by him and then sort of like bounced it off the glass and a little floater. And I'm like, the and one PA announcer would have been, hot sizzle, like it was just hot sauce, hot sizzle, like it would have been a PA. And I wish the PA announcer would have done that. Just got up and just ran onto the court.
Yeah,
like right. The and one mixtape where
you get the towel.
The guy with the microphone just runs out there on the floor and falls down. Like, the game has to stop after that. We've got to stop and acknowledge the move that this dude just put on. That guy wore skates. That was that Doug
Skip
McDaniel.
to my loo and Escalade.
Dude, half man, half amazing is what Doug McDaniel was at times last night. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll get into, it's a longer clip, so we won't play it now. We'll play it after Cynthia Freeland. Travis Kelce talking about his decision and retirement and what's ahead for him and how tough this is going to be for him. And certainly he sounds like it, that it's going to be a difficult decision. We all know sort of the words, and we'll hear the inflections of that, but Jack, before you drive to Wichita in this weather, to be, you got 1 hour to get there, man. That's I don't know how you're going to get there in one. Plenty of time. Well, you're the wolf. That's 3 hours away. I'll be there in 2.
Well, if he's the wolf, there's a Banks should watch out if he's the wolf.
Is that right? Okay. Or Wall Street is what you're saying. Anyway, do you think Kelce's back next year, Jack?
I do. I would be floored if he retired at 36 because he clearly still believes there's football left to be played, and I don't believe he wants that last game of his career to be that, where you're down 34-0 in the Super Bowl. I'd expect him back not only this coming year, but the year after that.
How many people, though, interesting, how many people, though, get to retire on something like that, like a John Elway or a Peyton Manning? You know, it's like, hey, I won and I'm done. Because Jason Kelce didn't want to go out on a loss like that against the Chiefs and return the next year, and instead it was a disappointing 7-8 season or finish, and then a bad loss in the wild card round. Who knows? Thank you, Jack. Safe travels.
NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We had up until 2 o'clock. Coming up later on this hour and in the noon hour, we'll talk some more Chiefs football. We'll talk about Travis Kelce, the decision he has ahead of him, the crossroads offseason it feels like for the Chiefs. Is this a blip on the radar in the middle of a long dynasty and dynastic run, or is this the end of an era? All of these things that we will be discussing through the offseason, and it comes on the heels of a disappointing beatdown at the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, joining us here in the zone on this Wednesday. Cynthia, welcome into the show. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I woke up Monday morning with the disastrous feeling of the Chiefs not winning 3 consecutive Super Bowls. So there was some perspective that was gained. The game was awful, and it was not entertaining. And unless you're an Eagles fan or just simply want to see the Chiefs beat down, that's fine. But there were a lot of people that were like, I want to see the Chiefs lose. And then they're like, well, that game sucked. That was boring. I mean, the only good thing was seeing the Chiefs, get embarrassed, or as the Eagles are saying, a belt to ass. And that sucks because that's going to be a saying for them now moving forward. And that's at the expense of the Chiefs. But that's life. It's sports, man. Atlanta's got to live with 28-3 the rest of their, franchise history. So I'll say congratulations, Cynthia, and I do mean it, and job well done on the beginning of the season. I'm not happy that you were right picking Eagles over Chiefs to start the season, but you nailed it. You called it. You got it right, and so well done on that.
Well, to be fair, part of the reason was because the AFC is harder in terms of the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. So ahead of the season, you have to remember in those one-game sample size that's really what nailed it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sad to be right because obviously, I'd rather want to see Kansas City win, and it would have been cool to be there for the three-peat. But it is pretty cool to have 2 in a row. Not bad. Not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And be the only team that has ever, gone to 3 straight while winning the first 2. Teams have gone to 3 straight. That's right. I mean, the Patriots won 2 of 3, winning the first one, losing the second one, winning the third one. 70s Dolphins, they've done that. So teams have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls. It's just, if you want to differentiate between the 2, I think maybe Patriots fans would say, doesn't matter how you win them, you go to 3 straight and you win 2. It's 3 straight and you won 2. That's fine. People are going to argue. Like, I'm worried that the next 10 years are going to be Jordan, LeBron with Brady and Mahomes, and it's going to be like, oh, you think Brady's better? Okay. You think Mahomes is okay? You've got Jordan over LeBron. Okay, cool. You've got LeBron over Jordan. Oh, awesome, cool, man. Good for you, man. That's pretty cool. Patriots dynasty, yeah, man, that's awesome. Chiefs 7-year run, hey, congratulations. That's really cool. Go Chiefs. I don't want to really get, especially right now. I don't want to get into the whole debate about that, but I did want to ask you. How cool it is when you look back over your career, watching, Game Day Morning with you and Kimmy, and we had her on the show last week at Radio Row, and, being a Kansas Citian and how much she's sort of enjoying it and having to, be a professional on the air that talks about the teams while also the underlying love of growing up in KC and experiencing this. What about you being there on the field? Behind you is the field that the Super Bowl is getting ready to be played as you look back on your career, and how kind of cool that is that you're there sitting there hosting shows and breaking down the game that's going to be played on the biggest stage.
Never gets old, and also every single time, like clockwork, tears. They do my makeup; it's professionally done, and then I have to get it fixed because it never gets old. The way it feels, the air just is different. I know that sounds really strange, but it's just so special. And I'm like, who am I? Like just some rando girl from Michigan, it just, you're reminded how important and special and exciting it is. And it truly never gets old. Never gets old.
Yeah, no, it's, I do the same thing when I'm at Radio Row, and I'm like, this is awesome, man. This is really cool. I get to talk to some of these people that, I grew up watching. Like, I'm not a Bills fan, and the Bills broke my heart a lot, but sitting there talking to Thurman Thomas was really cool. I'm like, I'm sitting here talking to freaking Thurman Thomas right now. What is going on, man? Max Crosby comes by me and gives me a thumbs down for a picture, because he sees that we're in Kansas City. So, like, That's awesome, and I really like Max Crosby. You know, I mean, he seems like a really awesome dude. I don't like that he's a Raider.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a fan that Josh Allen is a Bill, but I'm a fan of Josh Allen.
That's right. That's right.
And by the way, that video that the Bills put out of him accepting the MVP and the kids that he's worked with, oh my God! Like, I didn't realize there were that many, allergies down in New Orleans. Like, just there were onions everywhere. My goodness, man!
I know, it was very dusty.
Totally.
It's
weird.
It was very, very dusty.
Yes, it was so weird. All right, Cynthia, what do you make of what we saw, and how surprising was it that it was that dominant of a performance where just start to finish it was Eagles just putting the Chiefs in their place?
I think that was the biggest surprise, that start to finish there was no it kind of was too far to adapt to be able to really kind of change the outcome. I mean, the pressure alone was just unstoppable, and that was really what happened. I mean, I don't think that any Chief would be like, hey, this is my best game I've ever played. I don't think anyone would say that was their, who this team necessarily even was, but it does happen. I mean, even thinking back to last season, I don't think anyone was like, hey, this Super Bowl winning team, by the way, we are who we were on Christmas, right? So it happens. Mm-hmm. It's professional football. That's, team 1 to team 32, as much as it feels like they're so different, they really aren't. And team 2 versus team 1, they're incredibly not different, right? So that's where it's just little tiny edges, and being able to overcome – this is a team that's been able to overcome kind of 1-point deficits, very close games. I don't think anyone felt like it was even over at halftime, right? Like, looking back, you're like, okay, it was, but not really. Mm-hmm. The feeling in the stadium, at least where I was and who I was around, it just was like, all right, well, this is going to be an epic comeback. Like, it just didn't feel like it was done, but, there was no getting around that pressure. And I think really looking back, the turning point of the red zone turnover, that's just really hard to get past.
Yeah, when I officially felt like it was over was the first drive of the third quarter.
Yep.
Mahomes had Xavier Worthy streaking down the field, which could have been either a long gain or a touchdown. He had time. All he had to do was gain a little depth in the pocket because the middle was collapsing. And instead, he sort of tucked it and ran. That was initial part. And then on 4th and 9, when Andy Reid punted there from the 45. And I thought, yeah, they needed to score on this drive. Like, they needed to come out and put points on this drive, make it 24 to and hopefully get a 2, make it 24-8, and have a little game pressure on the Eagles. Instead, punt, touchdown, or a punt, field goal. Now you're down by 4 touchdowns, not just 3 scores.
Yeah.
Would you have liked to see Andy Reid go for it on 4th and 9 at that spot at the 45-yard line, or would that have been too early and a panic move?
No, I mean, look, like we can all relitigate it after, but
sure.
I feel like at that point in the game, I don't think it would have been like people would have been like, whoa, but I don't actually think it would have been a whoa situation.
Because he went fourth and very next drive on 4th and 4 from the 47, and they didn't get it, but still, it was 5 yards further. But the next drive down 27-0, he was like, all right, we got to score now.
Right.
So yeah.
So I don't know. That time was I'm sitting here being like, I think you just like sometimes I think doing things that almost feel outside of your normal, you talk about I think a lot about poker and about how play calling should be a little bit more like a good hand of poker. Like, you have to do things that are weird and out of sorts to kind of change the cadence of what's going on. I wouldn't have minded doing some weird stuff, and I'm using weird in quotation marks, like not like weird stuff, like just stuff that's out of character, so that you can get a little bit of like, okay, like let's just at least be like, hey, this is still 15. Like, we have to respect that we don't know what's going to happen. I would have liked to see some just call something crazy, like that you wouldn't normally call. Like, don't get out of your own head with it.
The final score being an 18-point game and not really even being indicative of how wide the margin felt, which is also odd. It's tough to look back and go, boy, if this would have happened and that would have happened, maybe the rest of the game would have been different. And it's not, trying to revise history at all, because I do feel like in that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, if Tyreek makes the catch in the end zone on the first drive, it's 7-0. Maybe there's a little more confidence. Maybe Andy Reid, can control the ball a little bit more, running it, taking some pressure off the offensive line. I don't know. Before half, the Chiefs were trailing 14-6. And had they, got the field goal, it would have been 17-6 instead of with like 6 seconds left. Brady throws the touchdown, and it's like, all right, that was kind of a backbreaker. And you see kind of a panic with Tyrann Mathieu and those guys, going at it with Brady. And it was like, all right, well, something's going on with this team. And I bring that up for this one because that game got out of hand too, and it never really felt like it was all that close looking back. And this one early in the game, like I do wonder if Mahomes makes a better pass on 2nd and 9 to Travis Kelce, or if Kelce catches the ball and helps his quarterback out. If on 3rd down and 3 in the second possession, and this is probably the play that most is puzzling to me, Cynthia, because Patrick runs the ball so much in the postseason and on 3rd down a lot, that on that 3rd down and 3, he's running up through the pocket, and Nolan Smith goes to grab him, but he misses. Like, he doesn't even hit him, and Mahomes plants his left leg and then dives to Hollywood and sort of throws like a push shot jumper over his head. And the all-22, Cynthia, is like nothing but green grass in front of Patrick Mahomes. Like, when has he ever turned that down in the postseason or the Super Bowl and said, I'm going to take a little 4-yard route to Hollywood with a guy right on him in Cooper DeJean instead of 25 yards of green grass in front of me? That's when I was like, what is going on with this guy? And I do wonder, like, if he makes that play, right? They're down, they're down 7-0 at that time. Maybe it's 7-7. I don't know. Looking back, can a play here or there change the course of what could have been a game that is totally a blowout? But it's like, man, if you do this and this, maybe you do cause Vic Fangio to get out of his, we're playing cover 4, we're not blitzing, and you ain't going to beat us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think look, like, little plays here and there add up. I don't think that, I know this is going to sound crazy because during the course of the season, 18-point games are definitely a little different than in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But I also think, like, they don't stop as much either, right? Like, Vic Fangio was emptying whatever defensive strategies he had come up with. He was emptying the tank. There was no holding back. There was no, I mean, the fact that they put in, Kenny Pickett and he wasn't just nailing it down, like stuff like that. Like you could tell that they were like really like this was their, their strategy, and they just got it right. I think of like penalty kicks, right? Like sometimes the goalie just picks the right direction and it just doesn't work out, and then they just kind of kept doing that, and then it becomes harder and harder, and the mental aspect of it all becomes like even more daunting. So I kind of feel like I kind of take it to that because even if it would have been the opposite, I still wouldn't have said that the Eagles, let's say, the Chiefs had won by 18. I wouldn't have been like, well, the Eagles were not like an 18-point deficit team. It's just the way that these games are played in the postseason are way different, especially the Super Bowl. Like, this is the last time these guys play together, no matter what, because contracts, things like whatever. So empty it out. Empty out everything you've got. Hold nothing back, right? So it's going to be more lopsided than it actually could have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, obviously losing by 18 is a little different when you're down by as many as they were before getting the couple of touchdowns there late in the game. But if you had said, hey, they're going to lose by 4 touchdowns, or if you just said, Cynthia, hey, Patrick Mahomes is going to play one of his worst games, is not going to have a feel for the pocket, is not going to be accurate, is going to make some really head-scratching decisions. One of them on a 3rd and 16 that the pass would have been incomplete anyway, but yet he throws it, and Cooper DeJean is right there. It's just like one of those odd, like, why would you throw that ball? What was going through your mind there? And Andy Reid would have a game plan that just didn't work, and they wouldn't be running the ball, and they couldn't pass protect. Then I'd said, yeah, they probably lose by 4 touchdowns if that's the case. I just don't think that's going to be the case, right? But that's really what happened. Mahomes had one of his first. Mahomes had what I believe to probably be his worst game from start to finish. That it's only come close with the second half of the Bengals after he was damn near perfect in the first half against the Bengals. Right. The second half was terrible. This is the first time I've seen that. And Andy Reid, it didn't seem like they ever really adjusted to Vic Fangio saying, we're not going to blitz, we're playing cover 4, And Andy Reid going, man, there are space for us to exploit this. We keep seeing these open seams. We've got guys running open. We're just going to keep doing that, and yet not being able to protect Patrick with their offensive line. Like, you've got to adjust at some point. It was just odd that the two reasons, Cynthia, that people said the Chiefs could win, both had really, really rough showings.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was looking back at look, Chris Jones getting hurt, like, there was just a lot a lot to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it just wasn't like this was Christmas last year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it got out of hand, and then it never really righted the ship. There was, but I think part of the reason why the Eagles stayed so aggressive were because they believed 15 could come back even for more touchdowns. Like, they were just waiting for him to like have that moment where everything turned around and like it just started clicking, because it would, like it I mean, you play long enough, it would have.
Yeah. Where does this Eagles team sit in your mind of Super Bowl champions and how good they were this year? They start off 2-2. I mean, there are a couple of late, catches and things like that away from being ridiculous in terms of what their record was, even though it was already really awesome, and the performance they put on in the NFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. How do you view this Eagles team and how good they were?
I mean, to be fair, like, it would have been interesting to see what happened if we had had a fully healthy Lions team, if we had had a even more healthy, a little bit better or more competitive, people are like, 14 wins, like, and the Vikings don't even make it, like they just have a terrible show. Like, long story short is, it would have been interesting to see if the playoffs were a little bit more competitive, because while they played a heck of a Super Bowl, and this was like a really interesting chess match for sure, and it's taking nothing away from them, I still think that, like, I'm kind of like, it's not that I'm leery, but I don't look at this team and think about it like I think about last year's Chiefs team, or some of the dominant Patriots teams. I think that they kind of, they I'll say, like, got a little lucky, like a little, it was very fortunate, and it was fortunate that the Saquon Barkley trick worked as long as it did, because it's very hard to sustainably run the football no matter what. I don't care who you are. It becomes incredibly hard. And if you're asking me, I think the O-line should have been, and taking nothing away from Jalen Hurts, I still think the O-line should have been the MVP of the game, but you can't pick 5.
What about the D-line? I kind of felt like the defensive line was
the trenches won the game.
Yeah.
The trenches won that game. Like, 100% trenches won that game. So it's like, I'm like, I guess Jalen Hurts, but, like, is it because we don't have better one single player that could have done it?
Yeah, and like, maybe I don't know. I think most people that are like, hey, the defense would get it, was like, okay, so who's most emblematic of the defense? Okay, Josh Sweat. But you're not going to get the majority of people voting for just simply Josh Sweat when you can't say, we're voting for the defensive line, or we're going to give it to Vic Fangio. Because
it doesn't work that way.
Because what I thought in the game and going into it, when we asked Chiefs offense versus Eagles defense, or Chiefs defense versus Eagles offense, my answer was, what's going to be more indicative of the game to see how this game will go will be Chiefs offense versus Eagles defense. How do they do against that defense? And that ended up being the case, and that defensive line certainly went and played phenomenally in that game. What does this do? What does this do in your mind for Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts for their reputations around the league?
I think that, like, Jalen Hurts, maybe I'm in the minority, but I didn't really think it's always, listen, to get the Super Bowl hangover, no one's ever, like, with their first Super Bowl appearance, won the second one. Like, there's some really cool things that he kind of got to knock off of the, like, trend list. But, like, it doesn't change what I think of him. I already thought highly of him. I don't think he's top 5 quarterback, but I don't think he's, I think he's, like, between 5 and 10. Let's call him that. And I think that's great. Like, I don't think everyone can be number 1. Like, maybe it sounds mean, but it's definitely not mean. I think Jalen Hurts is, who wouldn't want to be, like, quarterback 7 in this league? That's fantastic. So it doesn't really change much because I already thought very highly of him. Perhaps with Nick Sirianni, that whole year was such a mess with, like, so much, like, the emotions. Like, he, like, yelled at fans, like, just, like, maybe that will allow him to feel a little bit more comfortable in his own shoes and not have to do stuff like that. Because, like, I kind of hate when people do that. So, I think it's probably good for them from the standpoint of like how they feel about themselves. But I already think that, I was already in on Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. I mean, he played phenomenally in the Super Bowl in Phoenix 2 years ago.
Right. Wasn't his fault. He scored three freaking touchdowns.
Yeah. And I mean, people talked about whether Jalen Hurts deserved the MVP in that Super Bowl where the Chiefs won 38-35. Like, it was like he was that good. And he was good in this game too. And I'm with you. Like, I don't want to diminish what Jalen Hurts did. I do think that when a team is focused so much on the run game like they were, and he does have, I mean, he was pressured on 20% of his dropbacks and had 3.37 seconds to throw. Like, he wasn't scrambling for 3.37. Like, he was sitting back there and he threw a couple of dimes. But in the NFL as a quarterback, if you've got a clean pocket and a guy with 3 or 4 yards of separation, you're expected to make that throw to Jahan Dotson. The Devontae Smith one was pretty legit, down the field was a great throw.
That's why he's like quarterback 7. I don't think that's a mean thing to say. And now Eagles fans would hate me for saying that because they, win the Super Bowl. It's cool to obviously, but do I think could you name 5 quarterbacks better than him? The answer is yes. You just can't, right? Like Joe Burrow is, a very, very great quarterback who I would say is better than Jalen Hurts, but obviously didn't get past the playoffs, so it didn't get into the playoffs. So it's hard. And
there's I do believe there's a sliding scale of quarterbacks. Like, how much do you have to put around a quarterback for them to win a Super Bowl based on who the quarterback is? For Mahomes, the scale is all the way to one side to where he would probably need the least, where Jimmy Garoppolo a number of years ago would have the scale on the other side of you need to have a really good team around him. And Jalen Hurts is way closer to Mahomes than he was to Garoppolo, but they also have an awesome team around him. They also put a really, really good team around him, and it just sort of depends on who that player is. This offseason for the Chiefs now, Brett Veach and that front office, how important is it, and how big are some of the decisions they have ahead of them with some free agency, with whether it's a Trey Smith or it's Nick Bolton or Justin Reed, guys like that have been mainstays over this run, that all 3 may be on different teams next year?
Yeah, let's not be jealous of anything that Brett Veach has to do this offseason. Like, this is where they make their money, though. But I mean, we have to give them credit for how well they've done it in the past. This is not the first time they've faced difficult decisions. It's not the last time. They have to figure out. I mean, there's one, giant receiving decision that will possibly be made for them. So, that's an interesting one to see how that nets out as well. Pass catching, I guess, is a better way to put it. But I think they probably, the good news is it's not like they're just learning about this. And I know that if there's one thing I know about the whole staff in terms of like how the scouts operate, how everything works out, like this is a good defensive draft. I especially defensive line, defensive tackles for sure. So there are some options when it comes to certain positions that give flexibility in free agency that potentially, are different. But again, they've done it before. This is not new for them. They're certainly anticipating this, and I would imagine they have like 600 contingency plans that they're already working through. Because if I know one thing, I can imagine Brett Veach is like back in the office, like what time did the plane land? Like give him 3 hours of sleep, and then the man's probably back in the office. So that's how highly I think of their work ethic and what they've been able to do. And it's just not easy, man. It's not easy being good.
No. Is priority number 1 left tackle for this team as they have to, get that figured out? Or is it part of a grander scheme of the overall team building of where you allocate resources that, plan A may not happen and B and C and D along the way could result in a patchwork left tackle, but a better spot elsewhere? Going into this offseason, it certainly feels like to me that I've sort of described it as I would look at, priority number 1, 2, and maybe 3 is, man, you got to get that left tackle figured out.
Yeah, I think the way to think about it, though, is like you don't necessarily need to have the league's number 1 left tackle.
Right.
You need to have the right left tackle for this team. So creating however you want to find that person, it doesn't need to be, Trent Williams back in the day, or if even now, like whatever, however you feel about him now. But it doesn't need to be like the absolute brick wall of all brick walls. It just needs to be the right brick wall for this team. So while it might not be like maybe the sexiest name or like the highest paid guy, it just needs to be the right fit for this team. And that's where the difference lies, right? Like from this team, what they want to do, how Andy Reid wants to execute, whatever they want to execute, that's where it just needs to match what's required of them, right? Like that's what needs to happen. Not, you don't need to overpay there. You just need to find the right fit.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple names out there. Ronnie Stanley's going to be a free agent. I don't know if he's going to re-sign
really
in Baltimore.
Funny. I had a chance to meet him at the Pro Bowl. I didn't realize you would enjoy. If you've never gotten a chance to talk to him, you would enjoy. He's funny. He's a funny man.
Yeah, I would like to be laughing at his press conferences throughout the year next year.
There you go.
That would be cool. I would certainly take that.
You know who else would like that? 15.
I think 15 would like that. I think Big Red would like that. I think Matt Nagy would like that. I think Joe Tooney would like that too. It's like, oh, cool.
100%.
I can play left guard again.
100%.
Oh, neat. This is fun.
Neat.
I've thrown out the name Ikem Ekwonu too from the Panthers, that they've got a decision to make if they want to pay him. He had a better year this year. He's got top 10, pedigree. I don't think it would be a first rounder but you'd have to be right on saying that he's only going to get better. There are some things that can happen, whether trade, free agent, draft. I do think they need to figure out that spot because it has been a revolving door in these Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes and left tackle. A couple of quick ones, Cynthia. Rather lose in the playoffs or the Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Like no one wants it to be over. And look, like the other low-key great function of not losing in the Super Bowl or playing until the Super Bowl is like you didn't lose Spags, which if you would have if things would have gone, early. I understand that, obviously Kellen Moore is now the head coach of the Saints, but that happened before everything, and they, not that it technically didn't, right? But they pretty already knew that. But I would argue you get to keep Spags, so there you go.
Yeah.
That's a huge win right there.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so last year we didn't get a chance to ask you who would win next year because we actually didn't have our final conversation after the Super Bowl because I'd mentioned this early in the show that this time last year, the parade was going on today, and we were planning on talking to you on Thursday, but the tragedy happened at the parade, and so that show completely changed. So we didn't get your prediction last year as to who would win next year, but we do know you picked Eagles over Chiefs before the season. As it sits right now, what's your prediction for next year? Who over who in the Super Bowl in San Francisco, Santa Clara, however they're calling it, Bay Area?
Well, I wanna preface this by saying that we gotta, you have to wait till my pick, and we at least need to have the draft. Like we need free agency
for sure.
in the draft.
No, this counts. This is the only one you get to pick. It's the only time.
only one I get to pick. Okay,
no free agency or draft whatsoever.
I mean, because we have so much time, let's just go with what I want. And I want, Chiefs, and I want Lions, and maybe it's a tie.
Chiefs, Lions, tie. I got it written down.
Go.
So next year, post Super Bowl, we can come back to the Chiefs, Lions tie and see if we were right.
There we go.
See if you nailed that. They tied.
Do they split the Lombardi down like horizontally or
that's a
vertically?
Great question.
Like,
it's got to be horizontal because you should each get a half of the football. You know,
that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it horizontally, and then you could put on a little charm, like a best friend bracelet. You know?
Yeah, true. Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Cynthia, absolutely had a blast this year talking with you. I can't believe it's already over yet again.
Same.
But look forward to next year's conversations already. That we're only a few months away from the season starting, or a lot of months. I don't know. It's depressing. Who knows?
But when you're a Chiefs fan, you have the shortest off season every single year. So it's like right around the corner.
It's a great point. We're like the talking Super Bowl loss on Monday, and it's like, oh, pitchers and catchers report on Wednesday for the Royals, and then there's the combine and the draft. It's like, wow, this is crazy. So maybe we'll catch up periodically over the off season with draft and things like that to get your thoughts on that. Thank you, Cynthia, as always.
You got it. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was such a pleasure being here all year.
Absolutely. There is Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Absolutely great stuff from her each and every week. Loved it, enjoyed it. I know listeners had a lot of fun listening to her thoughts throughout the season as well. And yes, we'll catch up with some free agency, some draft stuff along the way with Cynthia, get her thoughts on some of these moves that are going to be made, and of course what this Chiefs team is going to look like next year, and what decisions are going to be made. As she said, there's a big decision that's going to be made for the Chiefs as a pass catching threat. Not a wide receiver, but a pass catching threat. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. More Zone next. which would be the first ever. So she's picking history next year. For a team to go to 4 straight Super Bowls and winning at least one. So that would be the first ever. To go to 4 in a row.
Makes sense.
And find a way to win one.
Yeah.
And they would have won 2 already, even if they go to 4 in a row.
And they can.
And can they go to 4 in a row? And they can. We'll see. I mean,
yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
We will find out if they can, because, man, that looked like a tired team, right? And it's, it'll sound like an excuse, right? It'll sound like all of those things but, that is what happens along the way when you are having the shortest offseason. You're playing all those games, which brings us to the conversation about Travis Kelce. And Ian Rappaport on Saturday, maybe Sunday morning, said that sources close to Kelce say that he will have a decision this offseason, that there's at least a thought of this being his last game, and he'll take some time after the season is over to figure out what he wants to do next. And based on PTSD of Andy Reid and last year's reports that Kelce was going to retire after the game, that sources have already said that Kelce will retire after and he didn't. And it was like, why would I be, retiring? I've got good football to play. So the little PTSD in the, okay, sure, Ian, like that's, well, now we know that that is the case. We heard Patrick Mahomes on Sunday after the game, but we played it on Monday, him talking about Travis. We'll take the time. We'll let him do that. We'll welcome him with open arms if he wants to play again. Travis Kelce this morning on the New Heights podcast, recorded yesterday. Let's do clip number 2 here. It's about 3 minutes long, okay? So he gets into a lot of stuff here in breaking down where his mind is currently. This is, again, Tuesday, just less than 48 hours after he had probably his most embarrassing loss of his career.
I know everybody wants to know whether or not I'm playing next year, and right now I'm just kicking everything down the road. I'm kicking every can I can down the road, and I'm not making any crazy decisions, but right now the biggest thing is just being there for my teammates and being there for my coaches, understanding, that there's a lot that goes into this thing. I've been fortunate over the past 5-6 years. I've played more football than anybody.
Yeah.
And it's because the people that are in that building and the fact that we keep going to these AFC championships and these Super Bowls. And that means I'm playing an extra 3 games more than everybody else in the entire league. And that's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And it's a lot of time spent in the building. Focusing on your crafts, focusing on the task at hand, every challenge that you set up for yourself. And it's that process can be grueling. It can weigh on you. It can make you better, and it can drive you crazy at the same time. And right now it's one of those things where it was kind of driving me crazy this year. And I think that it happens as you kind of tail off towards the back 9 of your career, as the SVP would say, is, it's as you see yourself or not feel yourself have the success that you once used to have, man, it's a tough pill to swallow. And then on top of that, to not be there in the biggest moments, knowing your team's counting on you, man. Those are all extremely hard things to, it's just a tough reality. And, yeah. I think I'm going to take some time to figure it out. And I think I owe it to my teammates that if I do come back, that it's going to be something that it's a wholehearted decision. I'm not half-assing it, and I'm fully here for them. And I think I could play. It's just whether or not I'm motivated or it's the best decision for me as a man, as a human, as a person to take on all that responsibility. The reality is gonna suck here for quite a while. It's just life, man. It's life. This sport can humble you so fast, man. It can give you so much praise. It can shoot you to the moon, and it can bury you, man. It can absolutely bury you. And it's the occupation we chose, and not everything can go as planned sometimes, even though we've been able to find a way over the past, however long, but especially this year and this team, we were known for finding a way. And as much as I like to think we could have done things differently, man, it just didn't feel like at the end of it was meant to be.
So I think part of it too is the report before the game, I think, is important here. Because without having the report before the game from Ian Rappaport about this is something he was going to be deciding in the offseason anyway, I could hear that and say, man, that's a guy who's devastated, who had a terrible game, has had a rough season this year by his standards in yards and ability to pick up yards after catch, yards per target, touchdowns, yards per reception, all of them, by the way, being career lows in 1 year this year, and not a year where he only played 8 games. He sat out 1 game. He missed 2 games last year. He sat out 1 game this year during the regular season and had career lows in all of those numbers, not in receptions because he still had 97 of them. But he had some games where it just felt like he's not out there, like is just not a part of the game plan, right? We talked about that throughout the year. There was stretches where it's like, oh, wait, Kelsey, is he? And then he would have like 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, see, it's still Kelsey. So without the report from Ian on Saturday, then I could make this out to be that's a guy who's devastated. And when he said not being there in the big moments for your teammates can be like, man, this guy's questioning what can I do now because I wasn't there. I didn't show up and I didn't make plays in that game. But the fact that he was thinking about it before, and he says, I'm going to kick the can down the road. So that means he's going to take some time and not even think about whether he's going to return. He's just going to enjoy life right now, and then he'll make that decision and sit down a little bit further down the road. What stood out to me, a few things there in that, Sterling, and we'll continue to talk about this throughout the show and certainly over the next couple of weeks of these quotes. He said, talking about the everyday grind, that you've got to be fully committed every day to go out there and play your best to play this game through the season. And he said, throughout a season, it can make you better or it can drive you crazy. And this year it was kind of driving me crazy. That's certainly a red flag.
Yeah.
If he thinks of this year going, the grind sucked, it wasn't fun. The grind of being around the guys, the grind of being around everybody and going out and playing the game that I love, it wasn't fun.
On a 15-1 one seed.
It was driving me crazy or making me crazy. And then said, if I do come back, this was later on in that clip there, quote, if I do come back, then it's not half-ass, I'm fully here. I still think I can play, but is it the best decision for me to come back and play? Those are all questions and decisions that guys at his age are going to have to start making. And is he okay with being a lesser player than what he probably thinks he can be or should be or has the ability to do?
That's hard for anyone. The quote that stood out to me was, as you see yourself or not feel yourself have the success you once had, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
It's just one of those situations where you're used to being the guy. You could go out and just dominate. No one could stop you. Well, now you're getting stopped. You no longer have the quickness, the speed, the ability to get open.
Man-to-man stopping you. Teams are going man-to-man, and it's tough for you to gain separation and get open. There goes zone, and you can kill them. But man-to-man, you don't have – you are sneaky, sort of slippery and elusive, but that's not the case anymore. It's not elusive and not sneaky there. It's just not being able to get open against man coverage right now.
And that's so hard for players to come to grasp and
deals with. That's certainly that's probably not going to change, right? That's just going to be reality for him moving forward. He's not going to find the fountain of youth and go, okay, now I'm beating man coverage the way that I used to all the time. No, it's just if I'm going to return, I know this is now reality of how I'm playing.
And can he handle that? Can he handle understanding that, hey, 800 yards is probably about what he's going to be now? That's the kind of player he is. And that's a very, very useful player. Again, we're acting like he's
right.
I'm not trying to take it. Just somewhat. Sean McGrath, he is still going to be a guy who's a top 5, probably top 7 guaranteed tight end in the NFL. He will probably be top 5, bordering top 3 in the NFL tight end, even if he comes back next year. But for him, can he handle not being the clear-cut number 1? Can he handle not being a 1,200-yard tight end? And I have to imagine blocking absolutely sucks at this point for him. I know we had the celebration he had when he had was it him and Tooney open up that hole?
Yeah,
we had that
right.
celebration.
The headbutt, yeah.
But that's a playoff game.
Yeah.
Now the regular season, the grind, and you mentioned about what he felt like this year. That it felt like more like a grind.
It was making him crazy.
And I just wonder if you're not having the success you once had, now you're going to have to block maybe a little bit more because you're not going to be the focal point of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to come back and do that? Do you want to do that?
Let's take a timeout. We'll come back. I want to look at a couple of different players that are Hall of Famers and the decisions they made, when they made them, and what kind of player they were viewed as at that time when they were stepping away or still trying to give it a go. We'll do that. Kelsey also weighed in on the overall Super Bowl performance and, elaborated on it rather than the minute 50 at his locker room about, it sucked. I didn't play well. So we'll hear that. And then also there was a really funny interaction between Jason and Travis about records that are being broken and Travis breaking the Jerry Rice Super Bowl receptions record in that game against the Eagles and how cool that is for Travis, who obviously poo-pooed it and was like, I don't care. That's a stupid record. I'll give a bleep about that. You will one day. Like, he will one day. He'll sit back in his easy chair, sipping some bourbon and drinking a book like Sterling and going, man, I have more receptions in Super Bowls than Jerry freaking Rice did, dude. That is unfreaking real. He'll like it then. Right now, it sucks. Who cares? More Zone next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. Mick Schaefer joins us in the 1 o'clock hour. We'll talk about some big decisions for the Chiefs this offseason coming up in the noon hour. Talked a lot of college basketball the first hour, how impressive this run has been for Kansas State. KU taking care of business, but what still has to happen for them. Mizzou needing to get back on track. They went winless last week. They need to go 2-0 this week. Games against OU and Georgia. And we ended there in the last segment talking about Travis Kelce. And then, the decision that's ahead of him, obviously, as we were talking about. But is he okay understanding that he's going to be a diminished player? He's going to be a lesser than player than what he has been in his entire career. And pointing out the fact that he had career lows this year in receiving yards, which was 40 yards fewer than he had in his first full season as a starter, so his second year in the league. He had yards per reception was 8.5, the lowest of his career. His previous low was last year at 10.6, so his lowest two have been the last 2 years. Yards per target at 6.2. His previous low was 8.1 last year. So, those two things being the career lows the last 2 years. But, when guys decide to retire and how they're playing, Tony Gonzalez played until he was 37 years old. And Kelce's going to be 36 and 37. And Tony Gonzalez, as a 36-year-old, had 930 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. And as a 37-year-old, had 859 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. And said, I'm hanging it up. Travis Kelce had 823 and 3 this year. Could he do what Tony Gonzalez did as a 36 and 37-year-old when TG had 93 receptions and 83 receptions? Yeah, Kelce had 97 catches this year, so he could certainly do that. But there's also Antonio Gates, who played until he was 38. And his 36, 37, and 38-year-old seasons included, as a 36-year-old, 50 catches, 548 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 37-year-old, 30 catches, 300 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And his last year as a 38-year-old, 28 catches, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Antonio Gates was still wanting to play. He played 17 years in the league. Or 16 years in the league, I should say. And those last 2 years, to get 15 and 16, he started a total of 5 games in those last 2 years. He was named Antonio Gates, but he wasn't Antonio Gates. And we know he's a Hall of Famer. But he clearly had to be okay with that, because returning as a 38-year-old, there was no way you thought you would return to being a 33 and 34-year-old when you just had 300 yards receiving the year before. But Tony Gonzalez probably had another year or two of good football, putting up good numbers ahead of him. But he was 37 and already played 17 years. Travis Kelce's played 11 years. 12 years total in his career, but he didn't play his rookie year. So 11 years. You want to get to 12 or 13? We'll talk more about that next. the different iterations of what his career can be and be viewed as if he plays 2 more years. We asked Jack in the first hour as we were going to break, just like, all right, quick, feel. Kelce back next year? He said, yeah, he plays 2 more years. It might be one to where he does play 2 more years, and he takes it year by year. He's got 1 year left on his contract. I have felt the last couple of years that he was going to play until his contract was over. So I have thought 2025 was going to be his last year. That's probably where I would end up landing, is that he'll play 1 more year.
Yeah.
And he'll go into it saying, I know that this year the grind was making me crazy, but this is going to be my last one, and I'm going to put everything I have left in this game. I'm going to know that everything I do is going to be the last time I'm doing it. The last time it's the opening game of the season. Last time it's the putting on the hat and the shirt for winning the division. Last time, you're going out there at Arrowhead for a playoff game. If it's where they don't have the 1 seed or something like that, and you're playing in the divisional round because at that point, or whatever it is, like week by week, I'm doing everything I can because this is it, and I'm going to pour all of my emotion and what I have left in the tank into this year. I'm guessing that will be the decision for Travis Kelce. I've got 1 year left on my contract. And I think he's a guy that he's made a lot of money in his career already. I wouldn't say more than you can spend because we've seen guys spend it.
More than I could spend.
If he marries Taylor, then it's more than you can spend probably. It would take a lot of really, really bad investments.
You couldn't even keep up.
Yeah, you'd have to buy a country and that country go under, to dang it. Spent that $1 billion on the country and then it went belly up. Who'd have thought? So money, I don't think is a motivation. He's got $17 million left on his contract, 1 more year. Does that make a difference? Maybe. Certainly it would make a difference for a lot of people. But I don't know that he's like, all right, I'm going to come back and play for 1 more year for $17 million. And I'm just going to, see what happens. I think if he doesn't think he's going to be able to go and put it all out there for a year, he would step away. But I don't think that's going to be the case. He's got a career waiting for him in the when his career is over. But also, Sterling, we talk about, well, he's got his second career. He's already setting himself up for a second career. But great. That's awesome. And he may have a blast doing that. He may have so much fun here in dabbling in it in the offseason. Saturday Night Live, Happy Gilmore's coming out,
sure.
Right? He did the Grotesquerie, the Are You Smarter Than a Celebrity, right? He's done these different TV shows and opportunities to act in certain things and bit parts and probably having a lot of fun doing that, right? Is he going to have as much fun if that's all he was doing? There's no more football? Like if that isn't the side gig to, do something cool that could happen after your career is over, to then, okay, well, now your career is over. That's all you have. Oh, well, now that that's your career and you're doing everything into that like you were doing for football, are you getting as much enjoyment out of that you were doing in football? And man, I should have given it another year or two because I couldn't wait to start this part of my career, and it's just not what I thought it was going to be. Or maybe, just maybe he's not that good. Maybe when he gets out there and it's his whole job and he's overexposed and people are like, oh, I thought it would be a little bit better. I think he's going to be good because he's got that personality, and I think
Sure.
The acting in Saturday Night Live was pretty darn good for the roles that he was playing. I was like, that's live. Like, you got to perform that. You don't get another take, right?
Wait, SNL's live?
Most of it is.
What's the L stand for?
Laughter.
Ah, okay.
Live for New York, it's Saturday Night Laughter.
Taped from New York, it's...
Yeah, I mean, there's some of those bits that are taped, obviously. But, you can cut, let's run it back here. You can do some of those things to get the best out of you. Like, I don't know, maybe his career is amazing after football. Maybe he hates it. And he's like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I don't know. But as long as there's that sort of passion for playing the game, there's no rush he's going to find anywhere the rest of his life that he gets on the football field. And is he ready to never feel that again?
Well, because that will be waiting for him. It's not like it's good.
Right.
You can pick up podcasting with your brother anytime you want.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I mean, they're still doing it during the regular season.
You can.
His brother's done playing football, and guess what? Still podcasting.
Yeah, and so, but you can't be playing NFL football in most likely 3 years. Yeah. I would be surprised. And so it just comes down to, what do you really want to do? What only he can answer that question. But how bad do you want it? Do you want your lasting moment in memory in the NFL to be that game? And if you're content with that, you're content with that. But I feel like Travis, the competitor, will not be content with that being the lasting image of one of the best tight ends in NFL history. I just would be surprised, I guess, if especially him too. I liken it more to like Derek Jeter or David Ortiz, where you let everyone know it's your final year.
Yeah.
Right. You go around, you have a tour. Coach K, good call, Dylan. Like, you let everyone know. You don't just ride off into the sunset. I'm not saying he owes it to Chiefs fans, because he can do whatever he wants. But I do feel like a lot of people would feel a certain way if he did not come back next year and you maybe didn't get a chance to see him, and you would have loved to see him one last time in a Chiefs jersey playing at Arrowhead. Again, he doesn't owe anyone that. He can do what he wants, but I just feel like he's a show pony, right? He's a little bit of a...
I'm a pony.
He's a peacock. You got to let him fly. Yeah, I guess that's where I land. I think he comes back one more year. I think he will announce his final season. Since he didn't completely announce that last year was his final year, that means, at least in my opinion, he's coming back for at least one more season.
I'm with you on that. I think that's probably what it's going to be, is that at least one more season. I'm not sure that he announces it, that this is going to be my last year. Did Jason do that before last year? Say, I'm returning for one more year, or just, hey, I'm going to play again and we'll see what happens. I can't remember what that was like. If it was, he came out and said, I'm playing for one more year and that's it, and we all know, or it was just assumed.
Didn't he do he was chugging a beer on like a deck or like at one of the bars that he does his fundraisers at? I'm pretty sure that was the video, and he was saying, I'll be back for one more year. And he talked about how Sirianni actually sent him a case of beer, maybe a keg, to bribe him to come back. So I think it was like a fun video where he was maybe teasing a retirement and then said, I'm coming back for one more year, like a Wolf of Wall Street.
Feels like Kelsey, right? Feels like Travis would do that, something similar, and almost went to one-up his brother. That's good. And by the way, you could just do the Elton John, where you just say it's my farewell tour, and you could keep going on for 5 years.
Right.
You never said it was 1 year.
It's just a farewell tour. I'm telling you that I'm going to retire eventually.
Or Kiss, just keep retiring and coming. Everyone always gives Brett Favre a hard time. It's like Kiss has had their final tour 9 years.
That's right. If you add regular season and playoffs, because that's the only way Kelsey would be able to really catch him, I'm talking about Tony Gonzalez. If you add up regular season and playoffs, Kelsey is 173 receptions away from Tony G. It'd be a couple of years worth of receptions for him to catch him there. He's less than 1,200 yards away from Tony Gonzalez with regular season and postseason. So he would need 1,200 yards, 1,185 to surpass Tony Gonzalez with yards combined, regular season and postseason. And he's 18 touchdowns away, regular season and postseason, from Tony Gonzalez. If he plays 2 more years, there's a decent chance he has all 3 of those. And combined regular and postseason has more receptions, yards, and touchdowns than Tony Gonzalez. Now, what helps him is that he has a lot more postseason games. But what also helps Tony Gonzalez is that Tony Gonzalez has 100 more regular season games he has played than Tony. 95 more regular season games he has played. And, he's got 320 more receptions in the regular season, Tony Gonzalez does, and 3,000 more receiving yards and 34 more touchdowns, all in the regular season, with the 95 more games that he's played, because Travis Kelce's first year of playing was a 25-year-old. Tony Gonzalez's first year of playing was 21. I mean, Tony Gonzalez played 4 years in the league before the age of when Travis Kelce started. Kelce was later, and had the microfracture surgery as a 24-year-old. And who knew if he was ever going to recover from that? And turns out he did recover from that. But it's just, now what do you, I don't think it's an automatic to where you retire and then slowly move into the next phase and he's going to be this entertainment superstar. He might be, but it's an assumption to make of like, well, Kelsey, you can retire and then just you've got your next career waiting for you. He does, but it's not going away. Like, it's not an either or. Hey, star in Happy Gilmore 2 or play football. Your choice. Well, he can do both in the offseason. And he can take time to figure out what he wants to do in the offseason. But if this year was the grind was making him crazy throughout the year, then yeah, I think he's really legitimately having to sit back and discuss whether or not he wants to walk away and retire. And he wants to put his body through that. Because what did he say with whether it was this one or another one where he was talking to Jason Kelsey? He was like, man, wish you were out there with the Eagles. And Jason Kelsey, I can't, little brother. My knees won't let me. I'd love to be out there, but my knee won't let me, little brother. Like, I'm not going to be able to play, right? There's nothing I can do to be able to do that. You still can. Not at the level you were, but you still can. My body didn't let me because of that damned brotherly shove and that tush push that takes a toll on your body. It happens. And with Kelsey, as he talked about in retirement, that, all the extra games over just the last 3 years. Because if you play 17 games a year, that's what, 51 games that you would play over 3 years? And Travis Kelsey has played 58? So he's played 7 more, but those 7, he played 58 because he missed 3 games. The Chiefs have played 61, 61, 20, 21, and 20 in the last 3 years. They played 20 games in 22, 21 games in 23 because they had to play the wild card, and then 20 games this year. So they've played 61 out of what would be a 51. So they've played 10 more games. Kelsey has only played 7 more games because he missed Detroit last year and Week 18 and Week 18 this year. So he's missed 3 games. But those 7 games that he's played extra, and 3 other games have come against postseason playoff teams and 3 Super Bowls that he has played, which is different than Week 12 when you're playing, the Colts, or the Patriots this year, or any other random team, Panthers, that they've played. It's not that when you're going, hey, this is a Jacksonville team that's putting everything they have on the line in this divisional round game to go and win because they're the upstart team and Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence is in there and they made this crazy comeback against the Chargers and now they think that they can, they're going to win everything and, okay, you knock them off. And now it's Cincinnati the next week and, boy, this rivalry, they have had your number. You're going to have to put everything you have into this game a week after putting everything you had into that Jacksonville game. And now you've got everything in this game. Oh, and a couple weeks later, you got a damn fine Philadelphia team and your brother in the lead up in one of the biggest games you'll ever play in. You're going to put every ounce of your body and prep work and emotion and attention for those 2 weeks leading up to that game. And the next year, you're playing in minus 30-degree temperature in the wild card against Miami. And you got to go out there and your mind has to be right or you're going to everything that they have in this game for 4 quarters. You got to match that. Okay, now you're heading to Baltimore. You did that. You expended everything you had. You left it out on the field. You beat Buffalo. Hey, now you got Baltimore, all right? And you got Justin Tucker, who wants to be a D about it, as Travis Kelsey said. Apparently more ways than one for Justin Tucker. And so you go to Baltimore, and you put everything you have into that game against a damn fine Baltimore team, and you find a way to win. And then you got San Francisco that you win in overtime. And you do it again this year by beating Houston and beating the Buffalo Bills with everything you had to have to win that game. And then Philadelphia again. Like, it ain't random 7 games along the way in the regular season that they're picking up. Like, that is a toll on your body for somebody who was 35 years old. So it's an extra half season that he has played over the last 3 years for somebody who's already in his mid-30s. Like, that's... And against really, really good teams where they are throwing everything at you and it is max intensity.
What's a bummer, too, is the Chiefs have tried to prepare slightly for life after Travis Kelsey, but are they ready? They re-sign Noah Gray, who had a really great start to the season, but somewhat
those 4 touchdowns against Bills and Panthers, like back-to-back weeks.
It just felt like Noah Gray is more of a, and maybe I'm wrong, but more of a tight end 2 than like the focal point of your offense.
High end number 2, really low end replacement level number 1.
Yeah, like and maybe we're all surprised if he ever takes over and he's like the guy, and when I say the guy, I don't mean you're going to put up Travis Kelce numbers. I'm saying almost what Travis Kelce did this year, but with a few more touchdowns. If you told me Noah Gray got to 850 and 5 touchdowns, that's a pretty good year for Noah Gray.
A hell of a year,
right? If he's even the starter,
yeah.
So
it's a hell of a year. Without Kelce, you're saying without
Kelce,
yeah,
if he went for 850 and 5 touchdowns,
17 games, 65 receptions, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. All right, cool.
Yeah.
You got somebody you can throw to as a tight end in the middle of the field, along with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy.
And so the Chiefs tried. They brought him back, which was huge because I think Noah Gray does bring something to this offense. They tried to get a little younger with a little more athleticism by bringing in Jared Wiley, and we'll see what he looks like. Obviously, the injury we never got a chance to see, which is also a huge bummer because you don't have any sort of realistic expectation for Wiley. What is he? I mean, where does he fit in the offense? And so if Kelce does retire, the Chiefs are somewhat
they
have Noah Gray at least, which helps things, but you have a lot of unknowns post. I mean, you're using Peyton Hendershot, nothing against him, but he was getting some snaps down the end of the season, and I don't know if that wasn't necessarily the Chiefs' game plan when the season started. I don't know where they go if Kelce does decide to retire.
Let's play the clip of him talking about the Super Bowl, and then we'll take a timeout, and we'll come back, and I want to get into the sort of crossroads of this offseason. But here's Travis Kelce talking about that poor performance and how they played in the Super Bowl.
The effort, the focus, the work that we put in, that wasn't the reason, honestly, going into the game, I felt as confident as I ever felt in going into a Super Bowl or a playoff game or a big game in my life. And, for a bunch of reasons that it just didn't happen, man. It just wasn't our day. Couldn't find a lick of momentum. I'm kicking myself for some of the tiny, tiny decisions I made on the field, trying to do something more than what I was asked to do during plays. I wasn't the best leader that I could be in motivating my guys and keeping my guys, calm, cool, collected. And I put a lot of that on myself as, the guy that's been in the building for 12 years and seen a lot of football and actually seeing a situation just like this in the Super Bowl, talking about the Tampa Bay Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough pill to swallow, man. Every time we felt like, we made a big play or we got something going, a penalty would happen or we be going backwards, and then on top of that, just not executing the play calls. It wasn't the play calls; it was a cumulative effort of everybody just not finding a way to get it done, man. And to happen on the biggest stage sucks, but to have it happen for the second time in my career on the biggest stage, man, it's a tough pill to swallow. It's a hard reality, man. And I love my teammates. I love my coaches, Chiefs Kingdom. I'm sorry for how it ended, but it's I have a beautiful life. I have a beautiful life, man. I have loved ones. I have the most amazing family in the world that supports me in everything that I do. And they were all there, cheering me on and hoping for the best on Sunday, man. I just have to tip my hat to the Eagles. They were firing on all cylinders coming out, and it just felt like we just never had control over what was going on in that game.
Not the effort, not the concentration. He was as confident as he's been in any game, in any Super Bowl, showing up, and then they just got punched in the mouth, and it started to snowball. And they did, and maybe one of the more surprising things is they did what they have forced other teams to do, which is wilt under the pressure and feel like it's slipping away and feel like you can't stop the momentum. You're swimming upstream, and now because you're trying so hard, you're trying to do too much. And as Kelce said, he wishes he could, some of the tiny mistakes he made on certain plays. some of the other things. We're trying to make a play instead of just doing what you're supposed to be doing because you feel the game slipping away. Trying to make a ridiculous pass instead of just throwing it away and punting because you feel like you're doing too much. Trying to maybe get to the second level to block and overextending because you're trying to be the guy that does this because you feel like it's slipping away. Whatever DeAndre Hopkins was trying to do and catch the football, I'm not sure what that was because I don't know that I've seen an NFL receiver do that on a football field being as wide open, not even somebody who has amazing hands like DeAndre Hopkins. Like it's one thing if it's like, that guy kind of drops the football, but he goes from running to go and catch it with two hands and then randomly reaches down with one hand. That would have been an easy catch with two hands. And then while sort of falling, either way, like everybody kind of had a hand in it.
Do you think he saw all the open grass and said, I can catch this at maybe, go down to catch this with two hands and I'll fall down. But if I can get one hand on this and catch it, I got green grass behind me.
And as it started to fall away, then he slides down to maybe try to. I mean,
that could be it, but
it was it.
You're probably But
no, I'm saying that could be why he did it, but it definitely was it for the game. Definitely was the game at that point. Because good God, the all-22 is sickening on that play. Just like, oh my God, so much green grass to run, and God, there were so many plays that you're like, man, there's so much space there.
They just looked they looked nervous for the moment. And I think before the game, we kind of got caught up doing how many Eagles have played in the Super Bowl, who've been here, who's going to be motivated, who's not, which we did with San Francisco.
Yeah.
What we didn't, I think, talk about enough was none of the Chiefs and none of the players in NFL history have been where the Chiefs are.
Yeah.
So that's going to be Jimmy Johnson went and talked to him before the first Super Bowl. Hey, I can lay out a 2x4. Everyone can walk across it when it's on the ground. I put that thing up on a ladder about 10 feet in the air.
Yeah.
You're worried about not falling instead of just walking across a 2x4.
And that's so true. I could walk across a 2x4 on the ground.
But
I would
put
fall
it up in the air.
Four steps into it in the air between two ladders.
Because you're thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall,
Yeah.
instead of just
every little start to of lose my balance is an overcorrection. Like, oh my God! Instead of like, oh, I'm here. Because even if I lose my balance, I can just step down and.
Well, I don't think if I can walk a 2x4 on the ground. I think a 2x4. You give me like a 4x8.
Well, you would have to be sober. Like.
Oh.
Yeah, you're just thinking of regular life for you.
Oh,
that's not going to be as easy for you to do.
Stumbling stew.
WHB. Jeff on Twitter, good question. Says, when's Travis Kelce's roster bonus due? Will that mean his decision will need to be made by then? May have missed it. Overslept and missed part of the show. His roster bonus is his first day of the league year, so he gets $11 million on March 14th. But he's going to have to make that decision before that.
Yeah.
Because the Chiefs are going to have to know what their salary cap's going to be, and if they need to go and think about tight end if, say Evan Ingram gets cap casualty. Okay, are they now in the tight end business? Or, no, they're fine with Noah Gray and Jared Wiley, but now we need to make wide receiver a little bit more of a priority because we don't just have Kelce, Rice, and Worthy next year. It'll be Rice and Worthy and Noah Gray. Okay, well, you got whatever money would be coming off the books, the cap hit of $20 million.
Is what? How many wide receivers are currently under contract? It's Worthy, Rice, and I think Sky.
I mean, they saved $1.5 million by moving on from Sky. So every penny, you're $5 million under the cap. Every million counts. So,
I was just making a point.
I know
that there's not there. My point was there's actually a lot that needs to be done offensively because there's not a lot currently under contract.
But if he retires, then his cap hit of $20 million goes away.
Sure.
So you'd save $20 million without Travis Kelce there. That can change your priorities. Now all of a sudden, now we definitely go get Ronnie Stanley. Kelce says he's not playing. He's retiring. Boom. Ronnie Stanley, you're a Chief. We're going to pay you $20 million a year because that cap hit that was going to Kelce is now going to left tackle because we're going to have to protect Mahomes even more now. We're going to have to do some of those. We're going to have to solidify that offensive line because, damn it, if Jalen Hurts can have 3.4 seconds to throw and only being pressured 1 out of every 4 passing attempts, then we can do that for Mahomes too. And if a team is going to sit back and say, we're going to make you be a fundamental quarterback and beat us from the pocket, then we're going to make damn sure that he can do that by protecting him. So Kelce isn't a security blanket against zone coverage. Ronnie Stanley, come on down. You're a Chief. Or somebody else. I don't know, Cam Robinson. Maybe they like him more. I don't know. Just, maybe Armstead is a cap casualty. Could be. And if he's a cap casualty, then, Teron Armstead is one of the best left tackles in the game. And he might be a June 1 cut, a June 1 designated cut, which has nothing to do with the team that would sign him and everything to do with the team that is cutting him. So there are a few names that could be out there that are probably all going to cost at least $20 million a year to go and sign as a left tackle. So that may change priorities at that point. You might just simply say, no Kelce, now we go left tackle. But that roster bonus is $11 million on March 14th. And again, you're going to need to know that decision before free agency starts. So he can kick the can down the road, but that road isn't very long. Like, a couple weeks. Now you got a couple weeks worth of a road to figure out what you want to do. I think it would be best for all parties involved if there's a decision before free agency. Now, does he owe it to the Chiefs? He owes it to the Chiefs to tell them. Well,
he's one of the few guys who actually might not.
Yeah, exactly. He might not owe it to the Chiefs to tell him. I think he's a professional enough to understand what his decision means for Brett Veach and the front office and what their decisions will be based upon that. And if he's going to play again, wouldn't he want that team to have the most information at the earliest time so they can go out and make the moves necessary to try to win a Super Bowl? And not be, oh, well, Kelce's walking away, and now we've got an extra $20 million, and all the guys that we could have used the $20 million on that would have really boosted this team is gone. Or, well, Kelce's returning now. Okay, well, if we'd have known, we would have done A, B, and C, sort of like Chris Jones. And, hey, we were going to sign, I was trying to get DeAndre Hopkins to sign with the Chiefs, the year that he signed with the Titans last offseason. And it was like, well, or last, whatever it was, when Chris Jones did not sign his contract. That would have been offseason of 23. And at that point, he didn't restructure his deal or sign the extension, which meant the Chiefs didn't have money to play with, so they couldn't go get the wide receiver. So your decision has a trickle-down effect. And I think the same thing with Kelce.
Yeah.
Because Are the Chiefs better off with the $20 million cap space and no Kelce? Or are they better off with $20 million going to Kelce and Kelce being on the team? Because production is one thing. I think it's going to be really hard to replace what he does in the locker room and on the field. And one of the things that he said he was most disappointed in the play or the Super Bowl was him not being a leader in the times that he needed to be a leader. Probably panicking along with some other people. Probably expressing frustration on the sideline in certain times when, he's been a guy that has been one of the leaders and the guys that have pointed to on this team as to Kelce's the guy that's been, there. Clyde Edwards-Helaire's talked about it.
Sure.
Other players have talked about what Kelce has done. So is it worth the $20 million cap hit? Or does Kelce tell him, I'm going to play 2 more years, let's restructure?
That'd be best case scenario.
I'm going to play 2 more years, let's restructure. We say $10 million against the cap, something like that, and you use that this, or I guess if you save that, it'd be really 5, because if you save 10, you got to put that to the life of the contract with the 5 million. But you get the point. Let's reduce that cap number. I'll be back next year, and I don't need a whole lot more money. I just want to go and win another Super Bowl. We're going to give ourselves 2 years to win the Super Bowl, and if we do it this year, I'm walking away.
The Chiefs seemingly have not done that a whole bunch. In regards to Joe Tooney, I think had one time where they did that, right? Where they kind of kicked the can down the road.
Yeah, they restructured his contract, which meant that this year, if they didn't restructure the contract, the out was really after this year
season, yeah.
To where it would have been like saving like $22 million against the cap. Now it would be saving 17.
Yeah.
So it's
with a $10 million already, that's a sunk cost if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah, but also it's a higher cap hit this year because they restructured and kicked the can down the road.
And so that actually might be another guy that they restructure yet again with Joe Tooney.
He's got 2 more years left in him, I think, at left guard.
So, we'll see what the Chiefs do. The Jawan Taylor contract's the one that makes it really hard.
Yeah. You again, take
sunk cost. There's no getting out of that one.
And that's what sucks about it is like if you restructure him, well, then you're saying he has to be back in 26 as well.
Yeah.
Or if you just take your medicine this year and bite the bullet on a $27.4 million cap hit, that sucks. But you went and signed a guy, thought he was going to be better. He wasn't.
You got a couple rings, and so you're not gonna you're not gonna beat yourself up too much.
And so now we got a ring, but that's fine. But
I guess one,
2 Super Bowl appearances, but still, now you bite the bullet, you take your medicine, and this is the last year for Jawan Taylor, and you move on. And that's my point about if you go and sign Ronnie Stanley, do you give Ronnie Stanley a lower cap hit this year? And Jawan Taylor getting his $27 million cap hit, and then you walk away and save $20 million on Jawan Taylor's cap hit the next year, and that then kicks in with what Ronnie Stanley would be against the cap. So you've just slid Jawan Taylor's cap hit over to Ronnie Stanley, and you're not combining them in one particular year. There are different ways to do that, and also if Joe Tooney's cap hit is lower, like all of those things, right?
I'm just a guess, and I know we have a long time.
And Ronnie Stanley is just a placeholder for a left tackle in free agency.
A name, yes, I get what you're saying. I just wonder if the Chiefs will do something that massive, a.k.a. a Ronnie Stanley or even a Cam Robinson, or are they going to do what they almost did this year, which it's not necessarily what I'm saying I want. I'm just saying what I think is a legit possibility. Do they say, all right, DJ Humphries, all right, we know you never got a real chance. We're going to bring back DJ Humphries, and we are going to bring back, obviously, given a opportunity to Kingsley Suamataia. Mm-hmm. Doesn't that feel more what the Chiefs are likely to do? Not what we want to necessarily have happen. Yeah. I'm just saying, what do we think is the most likely situation? If Kelce comes back, the money gets tight, and if the money gets tight, what do? I think they probably bring back DJ Humphries on an incentive-laden deal. DJ does not have any sort of leverage to be like, he didn't play. He didn't play this year. He got injured. I don't see a lot of teams out there vying for his services, so I'd have to imagine it's one of those situations where it's DJ Humphries, incentive-laden deal, coupled with a camp battle with Kingsley Suamataia, who if that doesn't work out, you move to guard. Wanya Morris is probably going to stick as your Andrew Wiley, your swing tackle, your breaking case. Maybe I'm wrong here. That just feels very Chiefy to me.
I think I don't think Kingsley's going to battle at left tackle.
You're already convinced he's a guard.
I think they are convinced he's a guard.
Yeah.
I think they've moved on to the point that he's a guard. And I think that's why he's been eligible and not Wanya Morris, or active on these games and not Wanya Morris, is because they need him as the guard to step in if Allegretti or Trey Smith went down, or if they don't think Norzad is ready to go, or whatever. They needed that extra where DJ Humphries could be a tackle. And in a pinch, in a really bad situation, Kingsley could also be a tackle, but he's more active he's more an active player on the roster that day to fill in at the guard spot, because you're already playing a guard down with Caliendo in there instead of Joe Thuney, where DJ Humphries then becomes your swing tackle if need be, if Joe Thuney were to go down. And then you've got a decision between, Kingsley. I think Kingsley is a guy that they're going to spend this offseason making a guard. That's what I believe, is that they look at him and say he's going to be a guard. And if that's the case, then you can't sign Trey Smith. You can't. You have to make a decision. The decision has to be made right now, Trey Smith or Joe Thuney. We've seen the issues with this offensive line this year. And to think, no, let's just run it back. Let's just have the same group of guys and figure out left tackle again, doesn't seem to be the strategy that the Chiefs have typically employed. They haven't typically gone down the route of, we'll just give it a shot. Let's just see if we can do it again. Let's see if it'll work this time, because it didn't last time. Our hope was that Kingsley or Wanya would win the job. Kingsley, quote, did, until we saw that it was rough. And then it was Wanya until we saw that it was pretty rough. And then it was DJ because he was going to save, and then he saw, okay, well, he's not up to the standard that he should be. Joe Thuney, heroic, way to go. You're the offensive MVP this year of the Chiefs, as voted on by your teammates. Great job. But you saw a guard playing tackle. At times we're like, hey, is Thuney, can he be a guy that plays tackle because he's been that good and, how technically sound he is? Well, maybe the 2 weeks leading up to the game, the Eagles spent time studying Joe Thuney's drops and his pass sets and how deep he gets on certain things and footwork there. If they had more time to study that, which, what they were doing of how to attack a guard at tackle, as opposed to maybe the Texans or, whoever, then maybe that's how he ended up getting exposed, is because they were taking advantage of the weak spots of him being a guard and not a tackle, and they had 2 weeks leading up to it to study exactly his strengths and weaknesses and how to attack it, where teams haven't done before because he's been a guard his whole career.
Well, and I think what it comes down to is you have, again, I know people have a certain feeling because your last memories of Wanya Morris was getting beat, right? But overall, I thought he did a fine job the majority of the season if he is your swing tackle, right? If he is your backup break in case of emergency for a couple games, I think Wanya was fine again, I just don't think you want him for the full season as your starting tackle, right? I think that's maybe where I'm at this point. But with Kingsley, I've just not given up complete hope, and maybe I'm just holding on to something. But every time I talk to offensive linemen, every time I just do some research, it really takes at least a year for tackles to find their footing. Yeah. It's never...
But that's if they're going to find it ever, though. You know what I mean?
But we talked about this yesterday. We talked about it with Alton and Penei Sewell. They're not even playing on the left side.
Right.
You have to go back to
I'd love to take my chances with Penei Sewell as the left
but
tackle.
they're not. They're also not drafting top 10.
Yeah.
Well,
I know. I'm just saying, Penei Sewell's playing right tackle, not because he can't play left tackle.
I agreed, but you got to go back to Christian Darrisaw, and you got to go back to Rashawn Slater.
Slater, not Staley. Slater. I combined Slater and Stanley there.
And again, the name I always go back to, and people get probably tired of it, but Andrew Thomas of the Giants, he was Kingsley Suamataia basically year one with New York, and everyone wanted him done.
As a
He's
top 10
bust.
pick, though.
Again,
Kingsley wasn't a top 10 pick that didn't play well.
I'll go back and try and find...
late second rounder that didn't play well.
I'm just...
He was a project that was a year away from being a year away.
But if he's a project and you played him in 2 games, how are you going to already close the book on the project?
Well, it could be a project, and they saw what they had and what the development could be and said...
It's Mekhi Becton then maybe.
Well, it could be... who was also a top 15 pick. Right, but it's okay, he could be a good tackle, but instead of hoping that he becomes one, we feel like he can be a really good guard. We feel like we might have LDT right here. So let's move him... We've got a decision to make with Trey Smith anyway. We're going to be priced out of the market for Trey Smith. I don't think Trey Smith's going to hit the open market and reset the guard market.
Yeah,
you're priced out of Trey Smith. So who fills in for that spot? I think Wanya could do that. And I believe they think Kingsley can do that. So what's a more pressing need right now from what you think you can maximize Kingsley's value? Is it put him at left tackle and hope that he continues to develop and figure out right guard? Or you think, boy, we really like what we're seeing at guard, and we're going to spend the entire offseason as he's our right guard, and he's going to get better and hone his craft, and boom. Yeah, we took a guard for the next 3 years in the second round, and we think we're going to get good production out of him. We thought it might be a tackle. We got him in here. We see it, as you would say, as most people, it's a sunk cost. Because just because we drafted him in the second round to be a tackle doesn't mean that we need to keep pounding our head against the wall and hoping that he becomes that, instead of saying we can maximize. He may grow into a tackle that's at a 6, but we feel like we're really confident of him being a guard that might be a 7 if Trey Smith was a 9 or a 10. So if we're more confident of him growing into a 7 guard quicker rather than hoping he turns into a 6 left tackle, we need to put our best 5 guys out there on the field to play offensive line, and Caliendo can't be it.
By the way,
Caliendo can't be the guard.
By the way,
although Caliendo was out there and Kingsley Suamatia was active, and they still went with Caliendo. Still, but go ahead. Sorry.
Again, to try and just have at least a little bit of optimism here.
Oh, yeah.
Kingsley just turned 22.
Right, yeah.
He just turned 22 years old at playing at BYU. Big jump to the NFL.
For sure.
I'm not saying that's your number one option heading into next year's offseason. I am just saying I think it's a option and a more viable one that people I think have just given up on too quickly. My personal opinion.
If it wasn't reading the tea leaves of him playing guard in that last game of the season,
agreed,
and then him being active that way, I'd be more inclined to say, well, they're going to see if they have another offseason with Kingsley. Maybe they do give him another offseason to develop as a tackle. I just think that they view it and say, we don't need to make a decision here. This is what he's going to be. And we think there's a higher ceiling with him being that right now. And we can have second-round money at right guard and also, not $20 million, $22 million, $23 million a year at right guard for Trey Smith.
And also, in Jawan's last year without having an out next year?
Next year's his last year,
So then next offseason, you teach him how to play right tackle.
I mean, maybe he slides over.
Play right guard.
Yeah, maybe he slides over and does that. I don't know. Maybe this offseason they say, Jawan Taylor, we brought you over here because you might play left tackle. We need you now. You got 1 year left on your deal. You're going to play right. You're going to play left tackle for us. And if you're badass, maybe you got 2 years left.
There's a situation.
You got 1 year before we lease you. But if you come in here and you're a badass left tackle, well, then you got 2 years and you're making you got a crap ton of money that you can make in that year for. Not an S ton of money. You would make a crap ton of money.
There's a real situation, a real that Jawan's at left tackle, Joe Tooney's at left guard, Creed Humphrey's at center, Kingsley's at right guard, and Wanya's at right tackle. Yeah. That's a real possibility for the Chiefs.
Does that make them a better 5 than they had against the Eagles in the Super Bowl? I don't know. It depends on what Jawan Taylor looks like.
That's a real possibility. That's crazy.
Yeah. Depends on what Kingsley looks like. They've got another offseason to figure those things out. But there's no doubt it's a crossroads offseason. And I think we saw what the line of scrimmage is, and I don't think that's any surprise to the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs woke up Monday morning and went, crap, in the trenches really is important in the NFL. Man, I wish somebody would have told us. Like this whole time we're just drafting cornerbacks and wide receivers and not even thinking about the offensive and defensive line. Did you know this, Clark? Did you know that was in the I mean, just the freaking. You got Ryan Poles left, and apparently he took the trenches with him. You know,
the trenches are full, Clark.
That's Borgonzi. You led us astray. Now you're going to go to Tennessee and talk about winning at the line of scrimmage. How selfish, dude. We had no idea that was. I don't think they woke up. But I think they might have woke up Monday with a renewed emphasis on attacking that with a little more vigor than they have the last couple of years in addressing those things. More Zone next. the way people can view you. C.J. Gardner-Johnson can say whatever he wants, tweet whatever he wants, Instagram, whatever it is, about Travis Kelce and who he should be dating or not. That's fine.
It's weird.
Yeah, I would say that. Saquon Barkley. I haven't seen the audio to this, so I'll keep looking for it. But Saquon Barkley was on with Howard Stern this morning. And from all indications, apparently it was a really interesting interview with Saquon. So I have to go back and listen to it.
Good or bad?
Really good. Like a good interview.
Yeah.
Like Saquon was just awesome. So Howard Stern talked about Taylor Swift. And Saquon said this about Taylor Swift. Said, I'm not sure what the question was, but here's just what Saquon said. I have no idea. I will say this, though. I remember that they showed her on the Jumbotron and she got booed. I don't get it. I don't get why she was getting hate there. She's there supporting her significant other, and she's made the game bigger. We're all about, in football, we're all about, how can we expand the game and make it more internationally? And we're traveling to Brazil, we're traveling to Mexico, and, apparently we're traveling to Australia soon. So we're trying to expand the game, and, her being a part of it's only helping that. So I don't get the slack that she's getting from Saquon Barkley.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just like that seems to be a pretty grown-up way of viewing things of like, Eagles fans booed her, and he's an Eagles player going, I don't know why they booed her. Well, she was an Eagles fan at some point. Yeah, great.
Right.
And so was Jason Kelce, who was crying on the podcast of New Heights because the Eagles won. He was crying. Are the Eagles fans going to boo him now? Are they going to boo Jason Kelce? Because he said, I couldn't believe how open and honest Jason Kelce was about his feelings watching the game and how upsetting and awful he felt in the game while the Eagles were dominating. His Eagles, city of Philadelphia, his organization, they have spent so much time, given so much back to the city. His wife and family, in-laws, diehard Eagles fans their whole life, and yet he's in a box with a bunch of Eagles fans, right? And family that's rooting for Kelce as well. Travis, obviously, it's his family that's rooting for Travis Kelce. But Kylie's also a diehard Eagles fan. And they're rooting for the Eagles. But they're also rooting for Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
But to see Jason Kelce on the podcast crying and breaking down because of how awful that game was to watch, because he wanted the Chiefs to win. He was rooting that hard for the Chiefs. And he was saying, look, this whole week I've been trying to say, like, I'm split and I'll be happy either way. But I didn't know until I go into the game and how it felt. And he said, and as they're winning, like, all I felt was this bleeping sucks. Like, this is awful. I feel terrible. Like, and then he starts breaking down about, I wanted my little brother to, have success and on that stage. And it sucks that he didn't get to realize that. And he's like, and I'm happy for some of the Eagles players and people that are there. And, he goes out of his way to say that. But ultimately, he was pretty emotional in saying he wasn't happy that the Eagles won. Okay, you going to boo him now? Because he was an Eagles player, but he's rooting for Trav? Where,
you can always root
well,
for
she's a traitor. She was an Eagles fan. Now she's rooting for the Chiefs. Yeah, that's kind of how it happens. And if my son ever makes it in sports or whatever and plays for a different team, I'm going to guess that I'll root against the Royals or the Chiefs or whoever. If my son's on that other team, there's a decent chance of that. Or if my daughter is dating somebody that's on a team that's going to be playing against the Chiefs or married to, right?
No, married. Come on.
Married to, that's what I mean.
Dating doesn't.
Well, it depends on what it is. I don't know. Taylor and Travis are just dating, and Taylor's dad is rocking Chiefs stuff.
Good point.
Taylor's dad
They're not married.
It depends on that. It depends on it. But if my son-in-law is playing for a team that's playing the Royals or the Chiefs, yeah, I ain't rocking Royals and Chiefs stuff that game.
Yeah.
All right? So it's grown-up stuff.
Great answer by Saquon.
Yes, it was awesome, man. Good for him, man. It's
an adult.
Seems to be a pretty decent, logical person. thingy, and it's a really, really good league.
I can get other people. People are like, I can't get enough football. I can.
Yeah,
it's good. There should be a start and an end point.
Yeah, I like
to everything.
I like
right?
the NFL.
It makes you appreciate it more. Yeah.
I like the NFL just like I like Major League Baseball. Maybe I'll watch from time to time a minor league game, but I'm not going to sit there if Major League Baseball was done playing and be like, oh, bleep, these two AAA teams are playing? Oh, hell yeah, let me just sit back and watch it. No, I'm probably not going to watch some of the minor league football that's being played. What was a tougher drive, from New Orleans or today for you, Mick?
It was New Orleans.
Okay, I didn't know.
Did you drive the whole way back, or were you behind the wheel?
No, there were three of us.
I didn't know if
did you
I
drive
was in the back seat when I was talking to you guys.
Well, you just seem like the guy, like the dad, with this, like, no, I'm driving, with no stops.
Yes,
I'm
but
driving.
My kids and my wife were not in the car, and so
did you drive the whole way here
today?
Did you drive the whole way
I
here
drove
in
the
the
whole
snow
way
today?
here
There were
today.
three
I
of
didn't
you
pick
today.
up Chase and Mackenzie.
Okay.
I believe I drove maybe the least. I drove like 3.5 hours, one shift.
Wow.
Chase probably drove maybe 6, and then Mackenzie drove 3 or 4 hours the whole way.
you,
I remember
Chase.
like in the back seat waking up, and I were giving her a hard time because I think she's probably a good driver, but I was telling her she wasn't. I was like, "Hey, just concentrate," and I'd go back to sleep.
They didn't play the trick on
My
you where
life's
it's like
in your hands.
where they went 1, 2, 3, and press the brakes. What happened? Gotcha, Mick. Now go back to sleep. It's all good. You're still alive, buddy. But by the way, leave it to Chase, the guy who's got to lug around all the equipment and do the work to be the one that drives twice as long as you guys. I mean, leave it to the guy who actually works around there.
Yeah.
To put in the work.
I mean, he's the photog. He should do more work. I'm the talent. I'm the face, right?
You should be chauffeured, quite frankly. The fact you
Right.
drove
I don't think
three.
Kevin Holmes drove there, rode there and back. Did not drive at all.
Oh, wow. Well, that's real talent.
His photog Al loves to drive, and Kevin's he's a passenger princess. Let's be honest.
Al's a hard worker.
Al is a hard worker.
You know, Kevin had a couple videos of him celebrating on Bourbon Street and throwing out beads, and then panning over, and Al's typing away and editing stuff.
For real?
Yeah, there was one of them that was like, "What are you putting together, Al? Oh, it's our story coming up," and he's overlooking Bourbon Street and throwing like beads and stuff, and panning back over to Al, who's clicking away, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that describes it." There you go. That's probably what it is. That our story we were running tonight, Al? Yes, it is.
Kevin can just fall into stories. I have to plan out days a week in advance. Okay, what are we doing? This is what we're going to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We've got this shoot. We got to run and
That's your
do
issue.
this.
That's your issue.
Agreed. And he'll just like walk out of the hotel, see some. Hey, how are you?
Here's a
And he'll
story.
stick a mic in their face and turns it. He found this one kid, this 9-year-old Eagles fan, that talked the most trash, but it was really funny. And he called Taylor Swift a baddie, a 9-year-old. He had a kid.
I do have a kid that's 9 years old.
Does he say baddie?
I have not heard him say baddie.
He doesn't around you. But.
Unless he's like kidding with his friends. Hey, hand me that baddie. I'm going to use yours to go up to the plate here. I'm going to try your baddie today. No, he doesn't use it that way, bud.
So, yeah, I take my time and put a lot into it, and he doesn't, and maybe that's the way.
See, you just got to
wing
live a farcical life.
That's Sterling's whole model. Like, Sterling shows up here at 10 o'clock. It's like, what are we talking about today? What are we going to do, guys? Okay. And then 2 o'clock, he's like, all right, I'm going to go wing it the rest of the day. Just see what happens. I'll see you tomorrow at 10 and just give it the old college try again, right?
I mean, nailed it.
This show produces itself,
I mean,
right? You get here,
Dylan,
it's done.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. Like, all he does is he gets here, grabs the format off the printer, hands it out, and goes, here you go, guys. All right, let's roll. All
Let's
right,
vibe.
Let's do this. I'm ready to eat. Here we go, man.
I have my soup right here, my Mexican-style street corn.
There you go. Nice. Good soup for you.
Good soup.
It's a good soup day.
Mick, I wanted to talk to you, now that football season's over, I wanted to talk to you about something that we haven't spent really any time discussing throughout football season or anything like that.
Male pattern baldness?
That is one of the things. That's the second thing we're going to get to. But the first topic
because
being...
we have not talked about that.
We haven't. And we haven't talked about this either.
Because everyone here has great lettuce.
That's,
Yeah,
we all do.
good.
I mean, Dylan shaves. His lettuce is great if he just chose to let it grow out. I mean, he
Sterling
chooses,
did that on purpose. I appreciate it.
He chooses it.
I know what we haven't talked about.
What?
Iron covers. Guys who have iron covers. I
Yes.
bet you do.
No.
Oh, thank God.
No.
I was about to
I
joke.
just got new irons, though.
Don't put covers on.
I never would because you look...
Third
He only
one.
puts
Yeah,
his
that
golf
was it.
club on every backpack that he wears, basically, to work.
His glove,
the
yeah. that's
office.
what I
Well,
say,
you
yeah.
never know when you might need one.
Yeah.
Okay. Those
so-
are the only two things I could think of.
Yep.
Cowboy boots.
So we've marked out 2 and 3 on the format of what I did want to talk to you about. But we definitely have not touched on this, so I'm curious of what you think they should do. Left tackle is not something we discussed. So what do you think about going into the offseason, Mick, with this left tackle for the Chiefs? Is it priority number 1? Is it Kingsley? Is it Wanya? Do they do DJ Humphries? Do they sign Ronnie Stanley? Do they trade up in the draft for one?
All right, who's worse, Corvette guy or truck guy?
I was going to say, so I had iron covers for a long time, but I lost my 6-iron cover, and it looks so dumb in there, so I took the rest of them off.
Is it receding?
That's my thought.
Is it receding for you at all, Mick?
Not at all.
On the lettuce?
I got a full head of hair.
Yeah, me too.
It is gray as gray.
The only thing receding is the left tackle spot when Joe Toon was getting pushed back into Mahomes, baby.
Because some of the guys are getting too old. They're getting a little gray out there. DJ Humphrey a little older. Maybe you need to get a little youth that's not Kingsley. I'm not sure. Are there irons called Kingsley? I don't know. But
no, they're not.
Is it priority number 1 for you? We'll move on and we'll get into other things.
I think the interior, the offensive line, defensive line should always be a priority for every single team, every single year, because that's where games are won and lost. And so I think it is priority number 1. Where else would it be? Another cornerback, maybe a linebacker if they can't keep Nick Bolton. Whatever. There are other priorities. Is it running back here? You never have too many wide receivers. I think it's left tackle.
The one of the positions of strength that has been talked about in this draft so far is the defensive interior, where you've got Chris Jones, and maybe you're looking.
That's right there too.
So it might be defensive interior in the first round, and re-sign Turk. And now you feel like, okay, well, now you got Chris Jones and Turk and then a rookie defensive interior guy that could be disruptive, and you feel better from that standpoint. Or it could be offensive line. But I do think the trenches is probably a big focus in the offseason.
I mean, be able to get there with 4 and don't let them get there with 4.
Boy, that is awesome.
That is the key.
That would be really good.
We saw that for 3.5 hours.
Seems like what the Eagles did there. And look, they've invested in it, and the Chiefs have as well. I joked as we were going to break, like, I don't think Brett Veach woke up on Monday morning going, crap, the line of scrimmage matters.
Trenches. I mean, you're right. A lot of that had to do with game plan and what the Chiefs had. Fit they did pay perfectly for what the Eagles were doing.
They did pay a lot of money for a right tackle, a defensive tackle, and a center, and a guard, and they've drafted different defensive ends, and they have one of the best guards that's going to be the number 2 free agent, so they've invested in the trenches there. But, over the last 3 years, or I should say 21, 22, and 23, so not the 2024 draft because they were all rookies. So if you look at 2021, 2022, and 2023, and take Thursday and Friday, which are the first 3 rounds of the draft, the Eagles had 10 picks, and the Chiefs had 12. 7 of the 10 picks for the Eagles were specifically offensive and defensive line. 5 of the 12 for the Chiefs were offensive and defensive line. So there were more skill position, things like that they, or just linebacker.
You said 7 of 10?
7 of 10 for Philly.
5 of 12.
5 of 12 for the Chiefs.
I have to imagine that 22 draft kind of skewed those numbers for KC, right? Because they had so many picks in that one to have those 12.
Yeah, so Karlaftis was a defensive lineman, and then so the other 4 was 5.
Sky Moore,
McDuffie, Sky, Cook, and Chanel. Were the guys. And even, you go back to Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton. Well, Creed is one, but Nick Bolton's an off-ball linebacker where, in the 7 selections for Philadelphia, 3 have been offensive linemen. Landon Dickerson, a second-rounder. Cam Jurgens, a second-rounder. And Steen is a third-rounder. And the defensive line, Milton Williams was a third-rounder. Jordan Davis, a first-rounder. Jalen Carter, a first-rounder. And Nolan Smith, a first-rounder. Now, 2 of those guys are picked 10 and 13.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs aren't picking 10 or 13.
That's a big thing right there.
Nolan Smith was also selected in front of the Chiefs.
When everybody else 30. Has that priority too.
At pick 30.
It's not like we overlooked Trent Williams or we overlooked Lane Johnson.
How did we miss Jalen Carter?
He was drafted 2 hours before we got to. That's how.
Only 2 hours? Oh, no,
that's a good call. We missed him because he had already come up, shook Roger Goodell's hand, and then left, and we were still waiting for pick 11 and 12.
Why didn't the Chiefs go get Myles Garrett? Oh, because they were good that year.
So Joe
maybe
Walt was,
maybe they can now.
Joe Walt was right there at the beginning of the draft before it started.
Yes.
He was right there for the taking.
Why can't they just get an Eric Fisher? Oh,
yeah,
because
he's right there for the taking.
1-1.
The Chiefs have been.
It is funny when they had the number 1 overall pick. They went to Central Michigan.
Yeah.
To go.
In fairness, so Eric Fisher, you look back, his career looks better and better.
What this team
does,
would
but
do,
the first half of it was not good. He was this close to being run out of town.
But what this team
for
would do
a few years there,
or how this team would look with Eric Fisher at left tackle, or how probably not Eric Fisher now at left tackle, but Eric Fisher in 18, 19, 20 until he got injured.
At left tackle, teach him.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric Fisher's only 34 years old. I say we get some pads on
dust
that.
him off.
Go do that. Yeah, absolutely. Creed was a second rounder. George Karlaftis and FAU first rounders. Wanya in the third round, and then this year Kingsley in the second round.
What happened?
5 selections.
What happened? I wonder what was the.
But again, you're drafting later on.
The biggest hurdle between Donovan Smith and Kansas City not reuniting this year.
I just didn't think he was good enough anymore.
Yeah. They took Kareem off the couch, but not
Donovan Smith. They didn't think they weren't going to call him.
I trust him. I just wondered what was the ultimate.
And I wonder if DJ Humphries might be. I think DJ Humphries is part of the mix of what they do next year. If it's a 1-year Band-Aid.
4 options right now.
I do like off the couch.
Is there an E? Is there a fifth? Is there a fifth on this multiple choice?
I'd like to buy a vowel, please.
I do like off the couch. You think all the players are sitting there on a couch like the Heisman house?
There's a big couch.
It's like a big couch always hanging
You're
out.
Up next.
They're like
DJ,
watching
Donovan
reruns
Smith.
of Friends.
Kareem is sitting there so long he has to have help to get up off the couch. He's like
my legs,
the cushions.
My legs are
they're numb.
They went numb.
Yes.
I've been just watching a whole bunch of reruns of Friends.
Is that what's going on? Is that
It's
what they
an
do at the
NFL
Heisman
couch.
House?
Steven Nelson actually might have been doing that. 'Cause he's like, "What have you been doing?" Yeah, not much. Just
Yeah. They
chilling.
They called him up off the practice squad and activated him, but they had an activation from the practice squad. So Steven Nelson like, hey man, come on up and watch the game because you are inactive this day.
And wouldn't that suck for the I don't know. It's probably a group of 10 or 12 guys going in. You're like, I don't know. Am I going to be up or down for the Super Bowl? You're here, all expenses paid, trip and all that, but you want to suit up.
Yeah.
If you suit up, you'll get out there for at least a special teams player or two, and to have kind of an hour and a half before the game, couple hours before the game, find out. No, you're not going to suit up for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, sorry about that, buddy. But you know what? That you get a game check though, better than the. Is it the same as a game check in the Super Bowl, or you just get the winners and losers if you're inactive that day? Do you get the winners and losers share as opposed to being on the practice squad?
I would guess you would get.
I have no idea.
I don't know. Actually,
do you get the full share that everybody else that's on the 53-man roster for that game gets? A win share or a loss share?
They got. I think it was $97,000 right for losing.
For losing
each player.
God, I would be so rich if I got $100,000 for losing. I mean, it just daily.
Sign me up.
Daily, man. Oh, that'd be so great. This to me it feels like a crossroads off season, and we'll follow all of these things throughout. And Travis Kelce, in his decision. Let's play that clip again. We played it a couple of hours ago. So let's play the clip of Travis Kelce. This is about 3 minutes long, Mick, if you haven't heard it.
Okay.
It's about 3 minutes long from the New Heights podcast, released this morning. They recorded it yesterday. But here is Travis Kelce weighing in on something that a lot of people have been wondering the last couple of days.
I know everybody wants to know whether or not I'm playing next year, and right now I'm just kicking everything down the road. I'm kicking every can I can down the road, and I'm not making any crazy decisions, but right now the biggest thing is just being there for my teammates and being there for my coaches, understanding, that there's a lot that goes into this thing. I've been fortunate over the past 5-6 years. I've played more football than anybody.
Yeah.
And it's because the people that are in that building and the fact that we keep going to these AFC championships and these Super Bowls, and that means I'm playing an extra 3 games more than everybody else in the entire league, and that's a lot of wear and tear on your body, and it's a lot of time spent in the building, focusing on your craft, focusing on the task at hand, every challenge that you set up for yourself, and it's that process can be grueling. It can weigh on you. It can make you better, and it can drive you crazy at the same time. And right now, it's one of those things where it was kind of driving me crazy this year. And I think that it happens as you kind of tail off towards the back 9 of your career, as SVP would say. Is it's as you see yourself or not feel yourself have the success that you once used to have. Man, it's a tough pill to swallow. And then on top of that, to not be there in the biggest moments, knowing your team's counting on you, man. Those are all extremely hard things to. It's just a tough reality, and I think I'm going to take some time to figure it out, and I think I owe it to my teammates that if I do come back, that it's going to be something that it's a wholehearted decision. I'm not half-assing it, and I'm fully here for them, and I think I could play. It's just whether or not I'm motivated or it's the best decision for me as a man, as a human, as a person to take on all that responsibility. The reality is gonna suck here for quite a while. It's just life, man. It's life. This sport can humble you so fast, man. It can give you so much praise. It can shoot you to the moon, and it can bury you, man. It can absolutely bury you. And it's the occupation we chose, and not everything can go as planned sometimes, even though we've been able to find a way over the past however long, but especially this year and this team, we were known for finding a way. And as much as I like to think we could have done things differently, man, it just didn't feel like at the end of it was meant to be.
So a number of things that came from that clip that I thought stood out. Not just the kicking the can down the road, because that road isn't very long to kick the can down the road, because March 14th he gets his $11 million roster bonus, and the Chiefs are probably going to need to know before free agency if Kelsey's going to be gone and a $20 million cap discount is given to the Chiefs, or that $19.8 million cap hit is going to be this year, or if he wants to sign a 1 year or an extension and say, you know what, I'm not only going to play 1 year, I'm going to give everything I have for 2 years to win a Super Bowl, and if we win it in year one, I'm walking away. If we don't, then I'll give it who knows what that decision is. It's not a long road.
That didn't sound there like he was thinking about that.
Oh, I know, but it's not a long road to kick the can. It ain't June when he's going to decide. Yeah. Like, he's going to have to figure something out to some degree. But when he talked about the everyday grind during the season, the thing that really stood out to me was, that every day when you're focused on the game in and game out, he goes, it can make you better, it can drive you crazy. And this year was kind of making me crazy.
Yeah, that's the first. We haven't heard that heartfelt before. It feels like the whole time here, he's been telling people what they want to hear. Oh yeah, I love it. Right?
Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Hopefully, still playing football. Yeah,
exactly.
I got lots of football left in me.
And so, not that I thought that he was lying or anything, but it felt like, okay, that's what people want to hear. And I'm sure for these guys, it's almost never just this black and white decision. Like, absolutely, I'm playing again, or absolutely, I'm leaving. It's a struggle, I'm sure. And you wake up different days and you feel different ways. And from Tuesday to Wednesday, you can be like, yeah, I'm coming back, or no, okay, we're good here. So that was a first, though, hearing that sentiment and that side of things.
And also him saying, if I do come back, it's not half-ass. I'm fully here, and I'm here for my teammates every day. I still think I can play, but is it the best decision for me? Like, when he actually says, if I do come back, not, as part of that. There are other things in there when he said, not being there in the big moments is something that's difficult, and obviously the Super Bowl, feeling like he didn't play well in the big moment. And can he play well again? And, hey, if I'm going to return, then I'm going to return with the understanding that I'm not beating man coverage the way that I used to. So I can't get open against man coverage. So I just have to accept that. Or also maybe the decision, and this is what I think it'll be, I think the decision will be you take some time, you get away from this game a few more days, and you sit down and you look at, your career and what's left. And yes, you've set yourself up for post-career. But if I'm guessing one way or another, I'm guessing Travis Kelce goes to the Chiefs or internally and says, one more year and everything I've got in the tank is empty this year. It means every day with the grind, understanding all of that stuff, I know what I'm getting into. And I'm doing everything I can this year. It's not, I've got 5 more years left and I'm going to go do the same thing. Nope, I'm thinking about retiring now. It's difficult. This year kind of made me crazy, the daily, weekly grind. No, one more time. Let's go win a Super Bowl, and I'm going to put everything I have into it, and I'm going to empty the tank. And at the end of the year, what happens, and I'll know that I can walk away in peace, that I left it all out there and I didn't have any regrets. Or retire and go, was it too early? I feel like I could still play. Like, would we have won if I was there? You don't have to worry about that. That would be my guess as to what he does.
Yeah. No, that was on the podcast today, right?
Yeah, it came out this morning. So they recorded it yesterday. He talked about
that was with Lebo.
Lebo
got that out of
That was Todd. That was actually on the
I
on the
have
bus.
a lead now for my 6 o'clock and my 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Lebo. You're damn right he is. He is on that bus right over.
No, and I think
that's my guess right now on February 12th.
The other side of things is the entertainment industry pulling him in the other direction, not just this podcast, but he was on how many TV shows?
Yep, he's
in a movie coming out.
Gilmore coming out.
Right, and I imagine that only more of those opportunities will exist, as well as he will be fantastic if he ever does studio work or tries to do, does the booth work for NFL games. His brother is great at it. He will be a natural at it. If that's something he wanted to do, that would be an opportunity that would, I imagine, be available right away.
But that's also something you don't have to do right now. That will be waiting for him. You only probably have 1, 2, maybe 3 years tops to really play football at this level.
And he can play football at this level. It's not as high a level as he once, was at. And probably, going out on the field and not performing on the big stage and the big moments is not, fun for him. But like when he was saying to Jason, whether it was last week or this week, of like, man, wish you were out there to Jason. And Jason said, my knee won't let me, little brother. I can't be out there. Like, that's different than Kelsey. Kelsey's body will let him be out there and play. He had, more than 800 yards receiving. He played in 16 games this year. He put up the snap counts this year. He said at the beginning of the season, wear and tear me, baby. Put the load on me, wear and tear me. And then this one, he said there's so much wear and tear that you went through that it goes through your body. Yeah, absolutely. That's the case. He can go out there and play. Where Jason's like, yeah, I can't be out there, man. My knee won't let me go play anymore. So even if I wanted to, it was time to hang it up. I had to go away. I can't tush push anymore.
No, you can't.
I can't do that. I can't get that low anymore. I mean, that's hurting Cam Jurgens, and he's a young guy.
It's a good point, though. I mean, not just the extra playoff games, but an extra regular season game now.
Yeah.
You feel that. It's 3 to 4 more games he's playing now than he did in the first half of his career when he would be one and done in the playoffs and just a 16-game regular season.
Yeah, last 3 years he's played 7 more games than if he would have just played 17, because 10 extra postseason games would be missed 3 the last 2 years. Week 18 this year, and then week 1 and 18 last year.
But you're right, that's 10 extra games in the beginning of his, because that's not only the 17 versus 16 game season, but the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's
10 extra games.
3.33 extra games.
But it's 10 extra games against teams that are playing max effort, max intensity, max concentration. Not it's week 13 against the Panthers. No, this is AFC Championship against the Bills and the Bengals and the Super Bowl, and the Jaguars coming off a big, comeback against the Chargers, and trying to beat the Chiefs. There, a lot of things there. They did have some fun, and it got a moment of levity that I wanted to play this because it was pretty funny from Jason. Travis Kelce obviously does not care about the Super Bowl records that he's breaking right now because they lost in the Super Bowl, but this turned out to be pretty funny with Jason and Travis talking about his now Super Bowl receptions record breaking Jerry Rice.
You broke the most catches in Super Bowl history, which I know that you don't probably care that much about it right now because of the way the game went. And I mean, you have so many records at this point that this is kind of just another one. But at the end of the day, it's just another thing that cements you as one of the best players ever to play in the NFL. I know you don't care about but I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the records mean a little bit. Because once you're done, that's kind of all you have left is the memories, the trophies, which obviously mean the most, and then the stuff that makes other people recognize greatness.
No, I mean, that's the last thing that I care about right now.
I know, but you will. So, and it's dope. Just here to tell you, dope record.
Thanks, brother.
As are all your other records. Offensive line, the only record I get is that he kept going on the field. He's out there again.
Look at him go.
This guy really won't take a break. He's headed out to the field for another consecutive week. How'd he do? No one knows. Just counts as a game played.
He only played the first drive.
I know he had 4 bad snaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There we go.
That was pretty good, man. Dude, I just started laughing, like literally laughing out loud. He's like, there he goes. He's playing again. He just won't give it a rest. How did he play? Nobody knows.
Like the Nate Bargatze.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows.
It's so perfect for an offensive lineman to be like, hey, how'd that guy play? Nobody knows. He's out there again, though. We know that.
How do you know that he's good? There's some guys out there. They watch him and then they tell us.
What's the record? He played it. He played again.
There he is. Look at him. He won't take breaks.
He won't take a break. Look at him. He's out there playing. He keeps going. It's the only record I got is that I kept playing.
He had 4 bad snaps. I know that.
I know that, but he played that week, so there's a record.
Kelsey never took breaks, but we do.
Oh my God. I see what you were doing for the show.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I just
Try it again.
Try it one more
Now
time.
I don't want to.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. So apparently, there may be more to the viral video that went out with Pat Mahomes Sr. and John Rocker in New Orleans on Bourbon Street.
I have
and
not seen that.
You haven't seen them almost get into a fight on Bourbon Street?
No, they're with each other?
Yes. John Rocker has...
Well, he's known for being level-headed, right, John Rocker?
Well, he is...
They both are.
He's tweeted lots of things about Pat Mahomes' son.
He has?
And making fun of his hair, things he's doing to Roger
I
Goodell.
didn't know he was still on anybody's radar.
And so the video is John Rocker on Bourbon Street walking up to Pat Mahomes Sr., who's hanging out with two other guys and going to shake his hand, and Pat Mahomes slaps his hand away and points into his face and looks like he's saying, bleep you. And then John Rocker's like, dude, what is your problem, man? It looks like John Rocker's like, hey, fraternity, buddy baseball.
Yeah.
You know, like it's all good. And Pat Mahomes
I guess they would have been contemporaries a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think they might have crossed paths in New York at the same time. No, they weren't.
I feel like
did they cross paths at Texas at the end of their year?
Seniors,
I don't know that they ever crossed paths.
Quite a bit older, right?
Yeah, he played a much, but at the end of his career was sort of the end of Rockers.
No, because
did they ever cross paths in Texas?
Pat Mahomes Sr. was in Texas in 2001. Rocker was there in 2002.
Okay, so either way, so this happens, and they start, going at it, and Rocker's like, what's your problem, dude? And then Pat Mahomes Sr. has to be held back. John Rocker throws a drink at his feet, and then the video ends. And then we start getting word that this could be a promotional stunt, because apparently the Rough and Rowdy boxing fighting match has a unannounced contract between John Rocker and Pat Mahomes Sr.
No way.
Which
I had the same reaction as Mick there.
Yeah, I had the same thing, which means that John Rocker is like a decent
video
actor.
ended abruptly? Like it didn't. We never saw the end.
They were pulled away. Like they were walking. Pat Mahomes was being ushered away by his two friends. He tried to stop and come back. John Rocker was wobbling around in his steroided body.
Yeah, that's my question. Is John Rocker is a lot bigger than Pat Mahomes Sr.
I don't know what he looks like.
I think John Rocker.
I
think he ate the weights. I think he actually ate the weights, and it went to his shoulders. Very
Where
broad.
Those 25-pound barbells are right here
and
my arms.
And I do believe he has skipped leg day a lot. Because he was sort of walking around.
I wouldn't tell him that.
Well, I think I could run away from him. Okay, I think I could walk away from him. Okay, based on that. Okay,
it's like running from an alligator.
I gotta see what he looks like. What is he? Probably in his early 50s.
He's 50, and Pat Mahomes Sr. is 54.
He's the Kool-Aid man. Okay, he's very top heavy. All right.
So Mahomes Sr.'s not as old as I thought.
Just so you can here's I'll turn down the volume, but there's the video for you. But apparently, that has turned out to be maybe that they actually have a contract to fight. And that's disappointing because I really wanted it to be that Pat Mahomes Sr. was like, no, dude, we're not chummy, buddy fraternity, baseball fraternity guys when you're talking bleep on my son most of the year. And the things that you're saying about him are, not cool.
Does he have a podcast that he says this stuff on, or is it social?
No, and it's Twitter. I was, somebody had tweeted out a lot of the things that he had said throughout the year, and I'm like, oh, no wonder Pat Mahomes Sr. slapped his hand away. Like, I'm assuming that Mahomes' dad has seen this guy who he was a contemporary with, who apparently, based on that, thought that they were friends. Like,
yeah,
hey,
he doesn't
Pat,
have to follow him. I'm sure that stuff makes its way to him.
Yeah, a lot of it. But then now there's video of on Friday in New Orleans, Dave Portnoy giving an interview on the street by somebody that's just talking to him for 10 minutes about the business and bussin' boys leaving and all of that, and said, hey, there's a rumor about a fight that may be taking place with some people. And he's like, I don't know if I can't say anything. I can't say the rumor because I don't want to ruin the contract or whatever. With the Rough and Rowdy guys are dealing with that. He goes, it's a rumor that maybe there's a pretty famous dad or something. And he goes, okay. And maybe Pat Mahomes Sr. He goes, okay, your rumor has some factual things to it. All right. And he goes, and maybe another baseball player by the name of John Rocker. He's like, okay, so you know. That was on Friday. This thing comes out last night of Bourbon Street. So that was a little disappointing because I really wanted it to be Pat Mahomes going bleep you, dude.
And also,
I wonder what the fight's going to look like because all Pat Mahomes has to do is just bob and weave and just jog around the outside because John Rocker will just try to waddle his way over to him.
I don't know, but if he catches one punch, man, he is yoked.
Well, but the problem is John Rocker is going to throw something with his hand, but he's not going to connect. we know that. It'll be wild. It'll be just flailing away,
Like Eastbound and Down is loosely based off of the attitude
Yes.
John
Yes.
Rocker had.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's almost hilarious that one of the first season is the matchup at Ashley Schaefer between him and
That's right.
him and,
Ashley
what's
Schaefer
what's the actor's name? I cannot remember, but
Craig Robinson?
There you go.
Yeah, Craig Robinson. Yep.
Philadelphia plum.
Yeah,
That's right.
there it is.
He knocks his eye out, right?
He does. Hopefully that doesn't
Are you
happen in
related
this
to
one.
Ashley Schaefer?
I am, yes. It's my uncle.
Hopefully that doesn't happen in
Great
this go
hair.
around,
Trust
so.
fund, baby.
Ashley Schaefer,
yeah.
great hair.
So that was disappointing last night, but it was not disappointing for the local basketball teams that went out there and won. K-State is
My son, every game's like, you've got to rank them now. I'm like,
It's
what
getting
they're
closer.
doing is good, but there's a lot of teams with better resumes that aren't ranked.
it's getting,
But
it's getting
it's for
closer.
real now, I think.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
for real now.
They can win out, or at least go 6-1 in these last games because Iowa State, the last game of the season, maybe they lose it. But they're in a position where the games that they have won, four top 25 teams in those last four with at Iowa State,
KU,
at Arizona State,
Iowa
KU,
State.
and Arizona. Yeah. You can go to BYU and Utah, and not easy places to play.
You could have thrown Oklahoma State in there because they beat them too. You could
I was
have.
thinking these last four
yeah.
specifically.
Oh, okay,
These four in a row. Like they had West Virginia and Oklahoma State, and it was like, okay, it's kind of a nice start. But then it was Iowa State at Arizona State, KU, and Arizona. And last night they were cold. It was like, what's going to happen when they have an off night? What's going to happen when they cool down from behind the arc? Let's see if they can win. Oh,
They
wait.
beat one of the hottest teams in the country.
Yeah. They're going to play a team that's 12-1 in the last 13 games and go 1 of 19 from 3. Okay, well, it was a good run. Oh, they won and went 1 of 19 from behind the arc. Did K-State? So that was certainly impressive. KU took care of business. The SEC had 5 games last night. This is a quote from Carl Ravitch, and
17, nice. You have Mizzou 17th in your ranking in your poll.
Okay.
I can pull it up.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
you have them ranked ahead of Kansas.
Well, the last 2 weeks, I believe,
Nice,
right?
yeah.
Kansas is 17th though in this poll, right?
Yeah, they're 19th in.
Are they ahead of
mixed.
Mizzou in the
They are.
big poll?
They are. Yep. But anyway, here's Carl Ravitch. He's doing an SEC game last night, Mick.
Okay.
The SEC had one hell of an off season or a non-conference season in basketball. And Carl Ravitch is, I guess, not as enamored with the SEC since then. Here's his quote and his stat.
So think about it. We know how dominant they were in the non-conference season, the SEC. They were 185-23. Since January 4 into Tuesday, the SEC teams are 82-82. It's not as if one team or 2 teams or 3. They're 82-82. Like there's been no ability to pull away. There's no dominant group of teams.
Oh. Is he joking?
No.
He's not joking?
82-82. And after last night, I looked up the record now. After last night, they're now 87-87 since
What are the
January 4th.
odds? Oh, 100%?
No team has pulled away. They are now 82
God dang it. No way, Carl. Come on.
82, 87, and 87.
He's a baseball guy. Wait till he hears what
just
the
no
overall
dominant
baseball
teams.
record is every year.
There's just no dominant teams.
So he tried to explain, tweeted about an hour ago. Just landed and see X is on fire. Simple explanation. Tongue-in-cheek 82-82 record was to illustrate any night either team can win and one
it
will.
doesn't.
Clearly very poor execution on my part. It's amazing that Alabama, Auburn have only lost once in such a great conference. That's all. Yeah, but not anybody can win because, as he said, Alabama and Auburn have combined 2 losses. You've got a couple of teams that have combined 1 win, so not anybody can win on any given night. And saying they're 80, you gave the non-conference. They were 185-23 in the non-conference. They're 500 since they started conference play as a conference.
Wait till he hears the record of bad conferences and what they are.
That's the thing is they have the same exact record as all these other conferences. So are they really the best conference? Because it seems like they're all on even footing. It seems like they all. I heard it and I'm like, did he say that? Did I miss that?
No way.
Missouri Valley is actually also 500. They are always
kidding
comped to
me.
the
What?
SEC. Yeah.
That is great. Like I do agree. Like the SEC is so overrated. Like they have 500 teams since January 4th. Like I
Check
could
the
not.
Big South record, can you? Do you mind?
Carl Ravitch is pretty good.
Yeah.
And that is-
87 and 85.
Weird.
What? That's odd. How did they do that?
But actually, is that correct? Don't they have some sort of like SEC, Big 12?
That was all
in the middle of all that. Okay,
no.
Okay.
They're 87 and 87. So what are the odds of that? So every
Dude,
single night
he's going to hear that every night of basketball the rest of the year. Oh, guess what, Carl? They're 101 and 101.
If you type in on Twitter a search, so I go search Carl. The pop-up is Ravitch 8282. That's the pop. If I type in Carl on Twitter, the next thing is space Ravitch space 8282.
That's hilarious.
They are 82 and 82.
True.
Which is, by the way, it's factual. He is right. He didn't make the number up. That is a fact.
It's true.
Going into Tuesday night games,
fact, not
they
fiction.
were 82 and 82.
So the I voted twice in New Orleans on the AP poll.
I knew you were the one.
Usually,
see, voter fraud right here. Mick just admitted to voting twice.
On February 2nd and February 9th.
Just admitted to voting twice. How'd you do it, though?
Carl Ravitch, help me out.
Well, I will say, I do like you having Missouri 17 and KU 19. I like your poll, Mick.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. BOLL.
On purpose.
Yeah,
that was on. He said it and then smiled and looked at Dylan.
But they send out a capsule every Sunday of like, okay, what each top 25 team now did of the big poll. Now there are teams in the AP top 25, the overall AP top 25. How old is he? That I don't have in mind, so I'll have to go and do my own research on those, and I try to take it out. I know Seren used to take it down to like 40.
Yeah, he would do top 40.
I'll rank like 30. Not as great as Seren. But so it takes some time. It takes about an hour or so. And so they send it out at like 4 o'clock. And I'm sitting there at the Super Bowl with really nothing to do. I'd spent $300 on my kids for shirts they'll never wear. I'm sitting there. I've already eaten my media meal. And so I'm like, I'm going to vote on the top 25 at the Super Bowl. And that was really cool. There's the stands were right behind us. There's a row of fans. And so they were looking down at my computer trying to help me out. Like, no.
Really?
Maryland, no, you should drop Maryland.
Dude, that's awesome, dude.
It was great. And so I texted my parents, and my dad's like, so you're voting on the AP Top 25 at the Super Bowl? It's like, 12-year-old you would think that was pretty cool. I'm like, yeah.
Anybody like, what about Nova?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's Nova in this, dude? Rutgers, where you at with Rutgers,
there
my
was
man?
No, we were in the Bayou, but no LSU, no LSU votes.
I was just thinking like Eagles fans
yeah.
would be back there doing
Temple.
that. Yeah. Thought it was odd there was Oklahoma State fans. Like, how about our Cowboys, Mick? Huh? About them? Like, no.
Yeah, they're not even delusional, but not even that delusional.
I know. Yeah, it's been a rough go of it, football and basketball. So.
Thanks for the reminder. NAIA AP Top 25.
It's the CIT.
Shut up, Dylan. Go to break. God.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. News involving Kadarius Toney as we go to as we hand over the show to Soren in the program.
What is it?
Kadarius Toney was arrested over allegations that he strangled a woman. According to police documents, this is cool how they write it. The former Kansas City Chiefs receiver was accused of putting his hand around a woman's throat during a dispute at a Georgia residence on January 14th and squeezing with enough force to cause her to be unable to breathe. The alleged attack left the woman with red marks on her neck, petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes. Somebody that's smarter than I would know how to pronounce that. Additionally, authorities wrote in the documents Toney took the woman's phone from her during the altercation in order to prevent her from dialing 911. So there you go with Kadarius Toney. And, of course, the guy who's a former New York Giant, Kansas City Chief, and most recently Cleveland Brown is described as the former Kansas City Chiefs receiver, Kadarius Toney.
He did have his biggest moment in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs.
With the Chiefs. He got a couple Super Bowl victories with the Kansas City Chiefs. Kadarius Toney did, certainly. So there you go. Everybody be safe out there on the roads. Are they better now, Mick, on your drive-in?
They're better. It's good. It's powdery snow.
Powdery.
It's just easier to shovel and to drive through. Be safe. Drive slow.
You know
but yeah.
I'm envious of Jack Johnson. He's heading to Arizona this weekend for a little spring training activity with pitchers and catchers reporting today.
Great.
Guys,
it's the best gig in the business.
Let's go hit the slopes. What are we doing?
Yeah.
I don't have $10,000.
No, I meant outside here.
Oh,
We can
okay.
just roll down a hill.
Dude, just jump off this balcony right into the snow. That'd be so awesome. Do
You
it.
first. You first.